Chapter 2476. No one could understand Xia Zhen's pain. Her pain was no less than Xia Shang's. She was also from a side branch of the Xia clan. Since she was young, she was gifted and quickly attracted the attention of the Shenwu clan. However, because of the incident with progenitor Qin, the Xia clan was very cautious of the side branch geniuses. She was suppressed until one day, progenitor Qin appeared and personally unearthed her potential. He took her to cultivate and her talent was noticed by everyone. It was also at that time that the direct descendants could no longer suppress her, unless they killed her decisively. This was the problem that Ancestor Qin had left for the Xia family. They could either kill her or allow her to grow and become the next Ancestor Qin. The Xia clan did not dare to kill her because she was progenitor Qin's disciple. If they killed her, they were afraid that progenitor Qin would take revenge on them. However, if they did not kill her, the branch family would rise up again. In the end, the Shenwu Sky used all their resources to nurture her. They gave her a choice between the Shenwu Sky and Ancestor Qin. She chose the Shenwu Sky because she had parents and loved ones. On the other hand, Ancestor Qin was able to betray the Shenwu Sky because his parents and loved ones had died in the hands of the direct descendants. These were two completely different situations. It seemed like a simple choice, but it was a cruel one for the little girl back then. She had shouldered the lives of her parents and loved ones, and had given up on the people she respected the most. At the same time, she had had to endure the teachings of the direct descendants day after day, year after year. She had been threatened by the direct descendants, and had even been forced to marry a direct descendant. All of this had been her pain. Ancestor Qin had experienced the pain of losing a family member, but he could take revenge without fear. With the support of the Lu family, he grew step by step and became an invincible powerhouse in the starry sky. She, on the other hand, had been suppressed by the divine martial sky from beginning to end. Her pain was unforgettable. She had wished countless times that Ancestor Qin didn't value her. That was the source of all her sorrow. Ancestor Qin had groomed her to make a choice for the divine martial heaven, but what he had sacrificed was her life. She hated the divine martial sky, hated Ancestor Qin, but at the same time she owed the divine martial sky because of the resources. She also owed Ancestor Qin because her talent had been unearthed. He wanted to take revenge on the Shenwu Sky and Ancestor Qin. The choice that Lu Yin had given was exactly the same as the one that progenitor Qin had given the Xia family. No, it was not a choice but a decision. Back then the Xia clan could choose to kill her or not. Now Shenwu Sky had to accept the joint leadership of the direct line and the collateral line. What made her feel better was that she was the only one who could make the decision. She could decide whether she wanted to or not. The direct line had no choice. Looking at Xianxia's face was pale. His usual confidence was gone. The more it was like this, the more Xianxia wanted to do it. "All right, that's it," Xiaqin said. Xianxia raised his head and looked at Xianxia. He wanted to say something, but Xianxia didn't give him a chance. A mere descendant of the direct line of descent had no right to speak to her. Actually, if Xiaxinji is gone, he can just disappear as a direct descendant, Lu Yin said. Xianxia swallowed the words he wanted to say. Right now, the divine martial heaven only had one old ancestor, and that was Xiaxin. Her words were the heavens. If she really wanted to remove the direct line of descent, no one could do anything about it. Let Xiaoshang's people take charge of the divine martial sky. "I've repaid his kindness," said Xiaqin. Lu Yin replied, "You've already repaid your kindness. What's next is hatred." He paused for a moment before continuing. "The Shenwu plain hopes that you can save Xiaxinji. You can choose not to save him as revenge for what the Shenwu plain has done to you over the years." Xiaxin was calm. As for progenitor Qin, Elder Chan, Xiaxinfei, Xia Luo and Xiaxin all looked at Lu Yin. He had received the greatest favor from progenitor Qin, so how could he help Xiaxin take revenge on progenitor Qin? Lu Yin brought out another person from Mount Supreme, Xiaji. Xiaji's hair was disheveled as he crashed to the ground, his face covered in dust. Everyone looked at him. "Xiaji." Elder Chan was shocked. When Xiaji heard Elder Chan's voice, he raised his head with difficulty and looked over. When he saw the old man, his expression changed. You've changed. Elder Chan, you've already broken through to progenitor realm. You're the first person in the fifth mainland to do so, Lu Yin said. Xiaji's eyes flickered with unwillingness, regret, and anger. Countless emotions tangled together, causing him to grit his teeth. He should have been the first to break through. If his plan had succeeded, he would have obtained the serious art and obtained Progenitor Chen's power. He would have been able to break through to Progenitor Realm. Luyin, it's all because of that little bastard. Xiaji hid his venomous gaze and lowered his head, not daring to let Luyin see him. Elder Chan sighed. He hadn't expected that a half-ancestor would end up like this. Who could he blame? As a half-ancestor, Xiaji had schemed against the Sirius sect, Leon's Armada and Eternal Sky Island, causing countless deaths. He had even attacked Luyin and then betrayed the Fifth Mainland to join the Shenwu Plain. Everything had led to his current situation. Elder Chan sighed. You should have known better. Xiaji clenched his right fist and said in a hoarse voice, Luyin, I'll teach you the 9 clones technique and the Xia family's secret technique, Blade Intent. I only ask that you let me go. He wanted to live. As long as he lived, he would have a chance to break through to Progenitor Realm. Elder Chan, an old rival, was actually looking down on him and saying such words. This was worse than killing him. He couldn't accept this outcome. His words caused Xia Shenfei to explode. Xiaji, how dare you teach an outsider the 9 clones technique? You're courting death in front of the Patriarch. Xiaji was shocked. Patriarch? Patriarch Shinji? Xiaji said hoarsely as he struggled to turn his neck to look behind him. Luyin clasped his hands behind his back and smiled. Don't worry, I'm not interested in the 9 clones technique. He then looked at Xiazhen. This person's name is Xiaji and he's the descendant of Progenitor Qin Xiaoshang. I'll leave him to you. Xiazhen looked at Xiaji. Xiaoshang's descendant? Xiaji turned his head with difficulty and saw Xia Shenfei glaring at him, Xia Luo with a faint smile and Xiazhen. The moment he saw Xiazhen, he was certain that this person was also a progenitor. Xia Shenji hadn't appeared, but another progenitor from the Shenwu Plain had arrived. He looked at Xiazhen and pleaded, Ancestor, please save this junior ancestor. Xiazhen looked at Xiaji. You're Xiaoshang's descendant? Yes, this junior is Progenitor Chen's descendant, Xiaji replied. Xiazhen frowned. Xiaoshang wasn't with Wang Xiaoyu. Where did his descendant come from? Lu Yin's eyes twitched. That's right, he had forgotten that Progenitor Chen had been betrayed by Wang Xiaoyu. Where had his descendant come from? Had he just randomly found a girl? Xiaji replied, everyone in the Fifth Mainland Xia family is Progenitor Chen's descendant, and we can be connected by blood to him. This is proof, but there are no records of our bloodline appearing in the records, so this junior isn't sure. Xiazhen retracted his gaze and fell into deep thought. Xiaji begged, Ancestor, I'm a descendant of Ancestor Qin and I've also joined the Divine Martial Plane. I'm part of the Divine Martial Plane, so please save me. I'm from the Xia family, so please save me. Xiazhen calmly replied, You're handing him over to me for me to deal with? Luyin asked. Yes, he's Progenitor Chen's descendant. Senior, you can deal with him as you wish. You obtained Xiaoshang's power, but you harmed his descendant. Xiazhen asked with his back to Luyin. Luyin replied, This person ambushed me as a half-ancestor when I was still in the beginning stages of my cultivation. If I hadn't had some tricks up my sleeve, I would already be dead. He schemed against my family and friends, causing 72 deaths. When the Fifth Mainland was in trouble, he sought refuge with others and betrayed us. He even knew about Progenitor Chen's past, but he still wanted to seek refuge with the Shenwu Plain. This person is not worthy of the surname Xia, nor is he worthy of being Progenitor Chen's descendant. I schemed against the Sirius sect to obtain the Sirius technique. That's Progenitor Chen's technique and it should belong to me. Those 72 lives of yours were an accident. The reason I targeted you was because you schemed against the 7 courts. You obtained power that shouldn't belong to you. Progenitor Chen's power should belong to me and the Xia family's descendants. Why should it belong to you? Why did you join the Shenwu Plain? Xiazhen asked Xiaji. Xiaji lowered his head. We're both surnamed Xia. Even if Progenitor Chen was still alive, he would have thought it through and be willing to return to the Shenwu Plain. Xia Luo shook his head. This old man was dead meat. The grudge between Progenitor Chen and the Shenwu Plain was too deep, and Xiazhen was also a victim of that grudge. Saying that Progenitor Chen should return to the Shenwu Plain in front of the victim was the same as erasing everything that had happened because of that grudge. It was the same as denying Xiazhen's past. Goodbye, old man. Thank you for agreeing to let me replace Xiajiao. I'll deal with Xiaxiang myself. There's no need to vent my anger on his descendant, Xiaozhen said indifferently. Lu Yin raised a brow. All right. Xiaji could tell that this Xia family ancestor had a grudge with progenitor Qin, but his words also seemed to be dissatisfied with the Shenwu plane. What was going on with this person? He subconsciously looked at Xia Luo, as this Xia family descendant whom he had tacitly agreed to replace Xia Jiyo should know something. Xiaji had just raised his head when a foot stomped down. There was a rumble as his body was stomped into the ground, causing the earth to crack as a huge force pierced through the entire Shenwu continent. Lu Yin looked down from above as he stomped Xiaji to death, just like how he had stomped Night King Zhenwu to death. This was the end of a grudge. Xiaji did not know why Xiaozhen had not saved him and had instead allowed him to be stomped to death. He felt that he had not done anything wrong as they were both surnamed Xia. So many years had passed and progenitor Qin should have returned to the Shenwu plane. Everything he had done had been for the sake of regaining his own strength. What had he done wrong? And why had Lu Yin killed him so decisively? Did he not want to obtain the 9 clones technique? That was the supreme battle technique of the Shenwu plane. Why had he given it up without any hesitation? Xiaji could not figure it out. Lu Yin sighed. Xiaji had died in the end, and the grudge of 72 lives had been avenged. Did it feel good? It did not. People had died and the grudge had been avenged. However, the dead could not be revived. Lu Yin immediately chose Xiaji as his general since he was a half-ancestor. This could be considered the first half-ancestor that Lu Yin had truly chosen. Previously he had chosen Tian Dou, who was only a peak emissary. With Lu Yin's current strength he would have no problem choosing a half-ancestor. Xia Shenfei watched as Xiaji was chosen, and then he looked at Lu Yin with a trace of fear in his eyes. This was an emotion that should not have appeared in his eyes, but it had appeared at this moment. There was nothing crueler than dying and being chosen as a general. Perhaps this was the reason why the Lu family had been exiled. The Lu family's innate gift was too terrifying. Chapter 2477. Xiaozhen stared at Lu Yin. This person was just as Elder Chan had said, ruthless. He was completely different from the sunny Lu Xian, but only this kind of ruthlessness could allow him to survive in space. The Lu family was gone, but he lived a prosperous life. It was because of this ruthlessness that he relied on. She stared into Lu Yin's eyes, but she didn't see any joy from revenge. All she saw was melancholy, which made her sigh in relief. There was a fundamental difference between someone who was forced to take revenge and someone who enjoyed it. It was no wonder why Elder Chan had been willing to help him. Elder Chan didn't think much about Xiaji's death. After cultivating for so many years he had become indifferent to many things. You don't have any objections to killing Xiaji, right? Lu Yin asked as he looked at Xia Luo. Xia Luo shrugged. He didn't have any objections when Xia Jiyo died. It was just a cycle of reincarnation. Lu Yin nodded. Yes, it was just a cycle of reincarnation. Xiaji was selfish and had no familial ties. He had allowed Xia Jiyo to be killed by Xia Luo in order to nurture a better successor. He could have stopped it, but he hadn't. Xia Yi's method of nurturing was cruel, but Xia Ji had allowed it to happen as well. They were far inferior to progenitor Qin, and they were more like the Xia family of Shenwu Plain. So, have we reached an agreement, Senior? Lu Yin asked as he looked at Xiaozhen. Xia Shenfei's heart skipped a beat and he looked at Xiaozhen as well. Xiaozhen glanced at Xiaji's corpse and then looked at Lu Yin. Yes, it's quite interesting to have the main bloodline and the subsidiary bloodlines jointly control Shenwu Plain. Ancestor this. Xia Shenfei wanted to say something but Xia Luo stopped him. Senior, please guide me in the future. Xia Shenfei stared at Xia Luo and clenched his fists. Xia Luo smiled. Pathmaster, even if I have Ancestor Xiaozhen's support, I won't have an easy time in Shenwu Plain. Pathmaster? Xiaozhen looked at Lu Yin in surprise. That was how he addressed him. This was the first time someone had formally addressed Lu Yin as such and he wasn't used to it. Take the Xia family members here with you. Thank you, Pathmaster. Xia Luo smiled. Xia Shenfei and Xia Luo exchanged glances, killing intent deep within their eyes. When Elder Chan saw this scene he could not help but laugh. Shenwu Plain was going to be lively in the future, and they could only blame themselves for offending Lu Yin. Lu Yin had been in the Fifth Mainland for many years, and ever since he had stepped onto the path of cultivation he had dealt with one enemy after another. No matter how powerful the behemoths were, they would all be defeated in the end, and Xinwu Plain was no exception. From this moment onwards, Lu Yin had officially extended his hand into the four-way scales. Although Xianxia was gone, the frigid Immortal sect shouldn't have allowed Lu Yin to meddle in Xinwu Plain's affairs so easily. However, when Lu Yin and Xiaxia arrived at Xinwu Plain, the frigid Immortal sect didn't do anything, which made Lu Yin uneasy. Bai Wangyuan and the others were not fools, and it was impossible for them not to have seen through Lu Yin's current actions. However, they still allowed him to do as he pleased. Even though part of the reason was that it would be useless for them to interfere from Lu Yin's point of view, it was more like they were waiting for something. The Lu family had controlled the Fifth Mainland for so many years, and Patriarch Lu Tianyi had even dared to face the only true god. This power was absolutely terrifying, but in the end he had still been banished by the four-way scales. They seemed to be powerless most of the time, but they would always act at the most crucial moment. Lu Yin thought back to all the times he had clashed with the four-way scales. From the astral palm strike agreement to the suppression after Lu Yu's death, to forcing them to hand over their star essence, to undergoing 6 origin tribulations, to plotting against Madman Lu, to calling himself a Dao Lord, and so on. The four-way scales seemed to be useless against him, and they couldn't stop him from doing anything. However, they had only taken the initiative to do one thing, and that was to destroy Stargazing Tower. Stargazing Tower had been the most crucial reason for the Astral Palm Strike Agreement. The four-way scales would always act at the most crucial moment. If not for the crazy headmaster's sudden breakthrough, they would have destroyed Stargazing Tower, and Lu Yin would have no way to deal with Bai Xianer. This would also mean that he would have lost the ability to control the four-way scales. Once a conflict arose, they would be able to act without restraint. The four-way scales didn't do much, but once they did something, the results would be disastrous. This was what made Lu Yin wary. He wouldn't be deceived by the four-way scales' facade. The more they did nothing, the greater their schemes. The Hellworm returned to Xinwu Plain. When the countless disciples of Xinwu Plain saw the Hellworm's enormous figure, their first reaction was that the forefather had snatched it back. However, the higher-ups knew that it was impossible to snatch the Hellworm back, as Xinwu Plain didn't have the ability to do so. Xiaxia brought Xia Shenfei, Xia Luo, Xia Meng and the rest down. Lu Yin landed at the same time. The Hellworm floated in the air above Xinwu Plain, and when it saw the familiar scene, it subconsciously roared. It was clamoring to see who could trap it. "Shut up!" Lu Yin barked. The Hellworm bared its fangs and brandished its claws, but when it saw Lu Yin, it bent its claws and turned around to roar in another direction. On Xinwu mountain range, the disciples and members of the Xia family were all stunned when they saw Lu Yin appear. Why had Zhou Xian come to Xinwu Plain? Xia Zhen descended, and in front of him were Xia De, Xia Ziheng and Xian Yu, along with a group of Xinwu Plain disciples. "Greetings, Forefather Xia Zhen." "Greetings, Forefather Xia Zhen." "Greetings, Forefather Xia Zhen." Xia Zhen grunted. "Gather all of Xinwu Plain's disciples." "Yes, Forefather." Xia Ziheng looked up and saw Xia Shenfei, Xia Luo and the rest. More importantly, he saw Lu Yin leisurely not too far away. He had a bad premonition, so he turned around and gathered all of Xinwu Plain's disciples. Under the dusky mountain range, all of Xinwu Plain's disciples stood respectfully, not daring to move. Xia Shenfei, Xia Luo and the rest didn't move either. Xia Zhen closed his eyes and rested, his progenitor's power spreading out from time to time. Overhead, the Hellworm's shadow covered the sky. Everything seemed so solemn. Only Lu Yin walked around casually, occasionally ascending the peak to look around and exclaim in admiration. Xiada's eyelids twitched, but he didn't dare to say anything. The current Lu Yin was no longer the Lu Yin of the past. He was someone who could directly confront a progenitor and had the qualifications to scold them. He had even schemed against Xia Shenji, causing Xinwu Plain to lose its true ruler. This person was an irreconcilable enemy of Xinwu Plain, but he was also someone that Xinwu Plain didn't dare to provoke. With a thump, Lu Yin broke open a rock on the mountain peak and took a look. Xinwu Plain's foundation was rather sturdy, comparable to the rocks in the Fiend Ancestor's metal box. Lu Yin wondered if these rocks could be broken down and what he could obtain from them. The commotion here attracted the attention of the distant Xinwu Plain's people. Shinwu Plains people looked at Lu Yin with hatred, and many of them looked at him with resentment. Lu Yin, what are you doing? It was Xia Taili, the only person who would dare to berate Lu Yin at a time like this. Xia De hurriedly signaled to Xia Taili with his eyes. He wasn't afraid of Lu Yin, but he was afraid of Xia Zhen's ancestor. He knew a little about Xia Zhen's past, and this ancestor didn't like the Xia family's direct descendants. Lu Yin crushed the rock and looked at Xia Taili. What does it have to do with you? He looked at Xia Taili's side, where Wu Taibai was standing and looking at Lu Yin with a rueful gaze. This person had once been one of the Sixth Mainland's Dao Source Three Skies, but the difference between him and Lu Yin was like night and day. When Xia Taili heard Lu Yin's words and saw that Lu Yin wasn't even looking at him, he was inexplicably furious. The more he looked at Lu Yin, the more annoyed he became. When he thought back to how he had been imprisoned and bullied, he cursed, "Get out of my Shinwu Plain." Lu Yin laughed. "You should ask your brother if he agrees." Xia Taili looked at Xia Shenfei. Xia Shenfei frowned. "Don't speak." Xia Taili grew anxious. "Brother, why did you bring him to Shinwu Plain? He's an enemy of our Shinwu Plain." Xia Shenfei barked. "Enough." Xia Taili wanted to say something else, but Xia Luo spoke up. "He'll be Shinwu Plain's benefactor in the future." Xia Shenfei glanced at him. The cultivators of Shinwu Plain were furious, and Xia Ziheng was even more furious. "Junior, who gave you the right to interrupt? Get over here and kneel." Xia Meng took a step forward. "Shut your mouth, old man." Xia Ziheng was furious. "And who the hell are you?" Xia De was stunned. "You're from the Xia family of the wasteland?" Xia Luo smiled. "I joined Shinwu Plain as well, so I'm considered half a disciple there." "You're just a branch of a branch," Xia Ziheng scolded. At that moment, Xia Qin opened her eyes, and her progenitor's power swept across the sky, causing the entire Shinwu Plain to tremble. Everyone trembled and no longer dared to speak. Aside from the cultivators who had stayed behind to guard the battlefield and those who had gone out on missions, all of Shinwu Plain's cultivators had gathered here. There were at least 10 million of them. These were the ones who had the right to stay and cultivate in Shinwu Plain. There were even more outer disciples and cultivators who wanted to join Shinwu Plain. This was the Four Corners scale. "Are you done quarreling?" Xia Qin's voice was cold. Everyone was shocked and no longer dared to speak. Xia Qin scanned the crowd, but she wasn't angry. This was the effect she wanted. Shinwu Plain only valued the direct descendants and bullied the branch families. Just now, she had been able to reprimand the branch families in front of her. This was the best outcome. She would let the branch families and the direct descendants control Shinwu Plain together and let the Xia family's ancestors see how far the Xia family would go in the future. With a bang, Lu Yin broke another stone. Xia Qin frowned and glanced at him with some dissatisfaction. Lu Yin hadn't done it on purpose. He had discovered that Shinwu Plain's foundations were different, and the deeper one went, the sturdier they became. This meant that the underground prison was at the very center. How had Lu Xiaoge and Xia Xinji's clone escaped? He extended his domain and searched Shinwu Plain. At that moment, Xia Qin's voice rang out. "Don't go overboard. Although I'm dissatisfied with the Xia family's direct descendants, I have no plans to betray Shinwu Plain. Our grudges have been resolved, and from now on, I'm still a member of Shinwu Plain and a member of the Xia family." Lu Yin retracted his domain and smiled at her. "All right." Xia Qin retracted her gaze. "Where is the current ruler of Shinwu Plain?" Xia De and Xia Ziheng exchanged glances and respectfully replied, "Ancestor Xia Xing has been imprisoned. He's suspected of colluding with outsiders to betray Shinwu Plain." "Bring him here," Xia Qin said. Xia Taili hurriedly stood up. "I'll go," she said before heading off in a certain direction. Ever since Xia Xing had been imprisoned, Xia Taili had been worried for a long time and had been thinking of ways to visit him. She didn't believe that her father would betray Shinwu Plain, but the order to imprison her father had come from ancestor Shinji. Now that Xia Qin had appeared, she would definitely seek justice for her father. Chapter 2478. Xia Xinji hadn't told Zhang Yang about Xia Xing because he wanted to scheme against Lu Yin and also because he didn't want this scandal to spread. It wouldn't be a good thing for Shinwu Plain. He had originally planned to use Madman Lu to kill Lu Yin before dealing with Xia Xing, but he hadn't expected to be the one to fall into the trap. Xia Xing was quickly brought over. Along the way, Xia Taili had already told him about Xia Shenji's banishment. Xia Xing also found out that Lu Yin was here and he was both nervous and expectant. He didn't know how Lu Yin would deal with him since he had cooperated with Ancestor Shenji to scheme against Lu Yin. Junior Xia Xing greets Ancestor Xia Zhen. Xia Xing quickly bowed. Xia Zhen waved her hand and tossed Xia Xing towards Lu Yin. Xia Taili's face paled. Ancestor, my father. Taili, the ancestor knows what to do, Xia Shenfei growled. Xia Taili looked at Xia Zhen and then worriedly at Lu Yin. Xia Zhen didn't hold back when Xia Xing landed in front of Lu Yin. She also hated Xia Xing. Xia Xing had betrayed Shenwu Plain, and if it weren't for her gratitude she wouldn't have saved him. This was fundamentally different from her revenge against the Xia family. We meet again, Sect Master Xia Xing. Lu Yin looked at Xia Xing with interest. Xia Xing looked at Lu Yin with a bitter expression. I didn't think that even Ancestor Xia Zhen would stand by your side. You really are an expert at manipulating people. Lu Yin smiled. You helped Xia Shenji scheme against me back then. Didn't you think that this day would come? Xia Xing was helpless. Yu Hao's identity was exposed and so was I. After all, I covered for you more than once. Ancestor Shenji immediately saw that I was a clone, so what could I do? I just wanted to live. Lu Yin said, that's right. You just wanted to live, but I almost died. Xia Xing said, if you want to kill me, then do it. Lu Yin raised a hand and under the gazes of Xia Taili and many other cultivators, his palm landed on Xia Xing's forehead. Xia Taili cried out, Lu Xian. Lu Yin suddenly pulled his hand back and his palm was filled with death energy. It was the death god's seal. Everyone saw that Lu Yin had extracted the death energy from Xia Xing's body. I promised Senior Xia Zhen that I would remove the death energy that was controlling you. Now you're free, Lu Yin said. Xia Xing was shocked. Not only was she shocked that Lu Yin had dispelled the death god's seal, but she was also shocked that he had said such a thing. This also explained why he had betrayed Shenwu Plain. He had been forced to do so. Xia Taili covered his mouth. Did his father really betray Shenwu Sky? Xia Shenfei frowned and stared at Lu Yin. Why was he explaining himself? You still want to use father? Why? Do you want to catch up with me? Lu Yin chuckled. Xia Xing stood up and walked towards the group from the divine martial heaven. Finally he stood at the edge. Xia Zhen's voice rang out. From today onwards, Xia Shenfei and Xia Luo will be in charge of Shenwu Heaven. Xia Luo comes from a branch of the Fifth Mainland, and the Fifth Mainland has the same status as the Starry Sky Tree. He and Xia Shenfei will be in charge of Shenwu Heaven. Everyone was shocked. Xiada immediately objected. Ancestor, we can't let the subsidiary and main branches control Shenwu Heaven together. Xia Zhen stared at Xiada. The power of the progenitor realm swept past, and Xiada's body was sent flying. He smashed into the ground and coughed up blood. His ruthless actions caused the people of the divine martial sky to fall silent out of fear. Does anyone else have any objections? Xia Zhen asked, suppressing Shenwu Heaven with her might. Most of the people in Shenwu Heaven were ordinary disciples, and there were also some from the Xia family's subsidiary branches. There were too few direct descendants and Xiada was one of them. Xia Shenfei, Xia Taili and Xia Xing were all direct descendants. They had been able to control Shenwu Heaven in the past, but now that Xia Zhen was in charge, they no longer had the right to speak. Xia Luo's lips curled up. Please guide me in the future. Xia Zhen looked at the unwilling gazes of Xiada and the others. That was right. The more she cared about the main branch, the more she wanted to make them suffer. Of course, this was just her revenge against the Xia family and she did not want to destroy them. Lu Yin knew this as well. Once Xia Zhen was done venting her anger or Xia Shenji returned, this farce would end. But how could it be so easy? Xia Zhen had used her progenitor realm to suppress Shenwu Heaven, which had forced them to agree to the subsidiary and main branches sharing control. Lu Yin had also been chased out by her. In the end, Lu Yin was still Shenwu Heaven's enemy. No matter how Xia Zhen viewed the Xia family, her attitude towards Lu Yin was no different from the other cultivators of Shenwu Heaven. If not for the fact that she wanted to remove Xia Xing's Grim Reaper seal, she would not have allowed Lu Yin to enter Shenwu Heaven. Before Lu Yin left, Xia Zhen said, Shenwu Heaven will not do anything to you in the future. Your enemy is Xia Shenji and he's already been exiled. I hope you won't cause trouble for Shenwu Heaven. As for the frigid Immortal sect, Shenwu Heaven has no interest in joining them. Lu Yin left Shenwu Heaven and rode the prison dragon back to the fifth mainland. The changes in Shenwu Heaven quickly attracted the attention of the entire starry sky of trees. Xia Shenfei and Xia Luo shared control, and they each represented the main and subsidiary branches. Many people looked towards Shenwu Heaven, guessing that this change would cause Shenwu Heaven to go downhill. However, for the time being, there was no conflict between the two sides. After all, Xiazhen was suppressing them. One day, Xia Ziheng arrived at the frigid Immortal sect and asked to see Bai Wangyuan. He did not see Bai Wangyuan, but he did see Bai Qi. You can go back. This is a family matter of Shenwu Heaven. My frigid Immortal sect cannot do anything about it, Bai Qi said. Xia Ziheng was put in a difficult position. This is clearly the result of Lu Xiaoshuan's interference. Xiazhen was deceived by Lu Xian and has already made it clear that he will no longer participate in the four-way balance. Will Ancestor Bai just watch as Shenwu Heaven leaves the four-way balance? How will we explain this to Xiazhen when he returns? Bai Qi asked. Then what do you want us to do? Fight with Lu Xiaoxian? Or do you want to fight Patriarch Xiazhen? Xia Ziheng fell silent. Just as Bai Qi had said, no matter what Lu Yin did, Xiazhen was the one who supported the subsidiary branches to control Shenwu Heaven. He was the Xia family's ancestor, so what could the frigid Immortal sect do? Can you let me see Ancestor Bai? Xia Ziheng asked. Bai Qi said, you should go back. Ancestor Xiazhen is the root of the problem. If Ancestor Xiazhen didn't support him, then how could a mere branch sect be the master of divine martial heaven? How could Lu Xiaoshuan's scheme have succeeded? This is Ancestor Xiazhen's choice, and the frozen Immortal sect can't interfere. Xia Ziheng helplessly left the frigid Immortal sect. If the frigid Immortal sect had such an attitude, then the Wang family and the White Dragon clan would definitely have the same attitude. It was not that they did not want to interfere, but it was also not just because this was a family matter of Shenwu Heaven. It was also because they could not control Lu Xiaoxian. Lu Xiaoxian had made them apprehensive, and since they could not start a war, there was no point in just talking. Xia Ziheng was unwilling to accept this. Although he was also a subsidiary branch and had wanted to receive the same treatment as the main branch, he knew that Ancestor Shenji would eventually return, and the subsidiary branch would never be able to make a comeback. It was better for him to play his part. Otherwise, if he crossed the line, then not only would the subsidiary branch in the abandoned land suffer, but so would his subsidiary branch. He did not want to be implicated. He had not originally planned to go to the Wang family, but the more he thought about it, the more uneasy he felt. He eventually decided to go to the Wang family and request an audience with Ancestor Wang Fan. At the very least, he could express his stance and wait for Ancestor Shenji to return. He turned around and headed towards the Wang family's mainland. Between the frigid Immortal sect and the Wang family's mainland, Lu Yin and Hen Exen stood there quietly. This time Lu Yin planned to deal with Xia Ziheng. This half-ancestor had caused him a lot of trouble in the past, and he had said that he would definitely kill him. Now that Xia Ji was dead, it was Xia Ziheng's turn. Lu Yin was not satisfied with revenge, but there were some grudges that had to be taken. One day later, Lu Yin did some calculations. It's about time. He looked at Hen Exen. It shouldn't be a problem to deal with Xia Ziheng, right? Henshin replied, no problem. Lu Yin nodded. When do you plan on breaking through to the progenitor realm? Hen Xian's eyes flashed. I don't feel like I'm breaking through. The ancient god once said that if I don't feel like I'm breaking through to the progenitor realm, then the chances of failure are extremely high. You don't feel like you're breaking through? Lu Yin recalled the scene when he had merged with Lan Ho's body. During the battle at the back of the battlefield, Lan Ho had been heavily injured by Hen Xian's attack. Hen Xian's power level was even higher than what he had shown. He was probably worried that Lu Yin would stop him from breaking through. Lu Yin clasped his hands behind his back. Would he stop Hen Xian? Once Hen Xian broke through to the progenitor realm, it would definitely not be a good thing for Lu Yin. The man was ambitious, and Lu Yin should stop him, but stopping him from breaking through would be the same as stopping the humans from gaining another progenitor. Just as he was thinking about this, a fluctuation came from the distance. Lu Yin looked up. There's a battle. Scope. Far away from Lu Yin and Hen Exen, Xia Ziheng stared at the strangely laughing doll in front of him in fear. The witch spirit god? Kiki, from this moment on, I'm Xia Ziheng. The witch spirit god floated in the air and cackled. Xia Ziheng's eyes narrowed and he turned to flee without hesitation. Although he was a half-ancestor, he had never thought of fighting against the 7 sky gods' bodies. These 7 old monsters were not people that he could fight against. Just as he turned around, Xia Ziheng felt a sense of danger envelop him. He released his inner world and countless blades formed a birdcage around him. Outside his inner world, an invisible force permeated the area. Witch spirit god, this is the top realm. How dare you appear here? Just as he finished speaking, a figure walked out from the front and grabbed at Xia Ziheng. Behind Xia Ziheng was the witch spirit god. Xia Ziheng slashed out with his blade from his inner world, but the figure in front of him waved his hand and caused Xia Ziheng's blade to mysteriously disappear. The witch spirit god wobbled into the birdcage and faced Xia Ziheng. At this moment, Xia Ziheng experienced a rare moment of fear. It was the same fear that he had felt when he had faced the undying god and the strange and sinister witch spirit god. He wanted to run as far away as possible, but his vision suddenly changed. His eyes appeared on his hands and he saw his own legs. His nose appeared above his head and his ears appeared below his feet. His 5 senses swapped places, causing his entire being to fall into chaos and his inner world to collapse. In the face of the witch spirit god, Xia Ziheng was as powerless as a child. The witch spirit god grabbed the back of Xia Ziheng's neck and exerted force. There was a cracking sound as all of Xia Ziheng's bones shattered. The birdcage that had been formed from blades shattered at the same time, and Xia Ziheng was held in the witch spirit god's hand like a marionette. The eyes in Xia Ziheng's palm turned and they were filled with fear. I surrender. I'm willing to join the Eternals. Chapter 2479. The sorcerer spirit god was shrouded in shadow, and the doll floated in front of him and laughed strangely. Are you willing to join the everlasting tribe? It's a pity that the everlasting tribe's power in this spacetime has been expelled. Otherwise we could have accepted you. Your only value now is to become my skin, Kik. Xia Ziheng shouted in fear. Wait. I have a secret. Secret? The sorcerer spirit god cackled. What secret could a branch elder like you possibly have? Obediently become my skin. The doll moved closer to Xia Ziheng until his eyes were almost touching Xia Ziheng's face. Xia Ziheng trembled and his eyes flickered as his fear reached its peak. I know the secret of the Wang family's yellow spring. The doll stopped and the sorcerer spirit god raised his head, revealing his pale chin under the sunlight. The secret of the Wang family's yellow spring? How do you know about it? Xia Ziheng gulped. Wang Yi left it for the Xia family and it was intercepted by our branch. Wang Yi. The sorcerer spirit god was confused, but then he remembered. The woman who tried to assassinate Xiaoshang as a half-ancestor, but was ultimately killed by the Lu family in the Daoist sect? Xia Ziheng replied, yes, that's her. Because of Lu Tianyi, she wasn't able to be with Lu Feng and was instead married to a senior from one of the Xia family's branches. Not only did she hate the Lu family, but she also hated the Wang family. Because the Wang family wanted another woman to marry Lu Feng, they never helped her and even forced her to marry into our Xia family. Because of this, her hatred for the Wang family was equal to her hatred for the Lu family. Before she died, she left the secret of the Wang family's yellow spring to our Xia family branch. This secret was originally meant for the main branch, but it was intercepted by our branch. Aside from the Wang family's direct descendants, only I know about this secret. The sorcerer spirit god cackled. Is it really the secret of the Wang family's yellow spring? Tell me. If I tell you, will you let me go? Xia Ziheng asked fearfully. The sorcerer spirit god cackled. I can let you join the everlasting tribe. Xia Ziheng sighed as he knew that this was the sorcerer spirit god's bottom line. It was impossible for him to exchange a secret for freedom. In my opinion, this secret that Wang Yi left behind is the greatest secret in the cosmic tree. Even if the Lu family is still here, this secret will still be able to cover of everything. Wu Lingshan stared at Xia Ziheng. Xia Ziheng slowly said, the Wang family's yellow springs is here. Suddenly the witch spirit god looked up. Who is it? The doll suddenly expanded infinitely, its eerie pupils replacing the sky as it scanned the ground. Lu Yin frowned as he grew impatient. In truth, he had arrived a long time ago and he had assumed that Xia Ziheng was dead for sure. He had planned to attack the sorcerer god after Xia Ziheng's death and deal with this half-progenitor's body. However, Xia Ziheng had actually wanted to divulge a secret, and it was even related to the Wang family's Yellow Springs. As a result, Lu Yin had not been able to conceal his aura and had been discovered by the sorcerer god. Since it had been discovered, it was time to resolve it. "Keep an eye on Xia Ziheng," Lu Yin said. He took a step forward and looked up at the gigantic shaman spirit doll. "You're still as disgusting as ever." He raised his hand and dust flew up into the sky. It was bound to be the heaven-flipping palm. Shaman Lingshan was shocked to see Lu Yin appear. "It's you." The overturning sky palm mercilessly pressed down on the shaman spirit doll. The doll wanted to resist, but it was only a half-progenitor. How could it resist the overturning sky palm? Lu Yin's overturning sky palm had suppressed the undying god's half-progenitor body. It was not something that a doll could resist. The shaman spirit god sighed. "You've grown so much. What a pity. Your growth has exceeded my expectations, but the more you grow, the less likely the 4 cardinal scales will let you go. It's just a matter of time. There will be a great battle in this space-time sooner or later." Lu Yin stared at the shaman spirit god. "How many more rats do you Eternals have hiding here? Kiki, you want to know? Go find out for yourself." After speaking, the shaman spirit god's body suddenly vanished. Lu Yin was shocked. A sourcebox array? He raised his foot and reversed the flow of space-time. Traces of gray were almost invisible. This was the power of time. The shaman spirit god had clearly vanished, but a shadow still appeared where he had been standing. The time he had fled had been distorted. "You really think you can escape from me?" Lu Yin's domain cut through the void, and the empty god's realm severed the connection between the shaman spirit god and the sourcebox array. Numerous sourceboxes suddenly appeared in the sky. These sourceboxes should have been hidden within the void, which was why the shaman spirit god could leave at any time. It was also why he had caused Xia Ziheng's blade to disappear. Now that the empty god's realm had severed this connection, the shaman spirit god had no choice but to face Lu Yin directly. The shaman spirit god stretched out his hand and bent his fingers as he pointed them at Lu Yin. The surface of Lu Yin's body suddenly withered, and he similarly raised his hand and aimed it at the shaman spirit god. Bang! There was a loud explosion and the two of them simultaneously retreated. Lu Yin's withered body had almost completely recovered, and the shaman spirit god's 5 senses had almost reached the limit of what Lu Yin's body could withstand. Fortunately, Lu Yin had blocked the attack, and the shaman spirit god's body had been shattered by Lu Yin's emptiness palm. Lu Yin was shocked. He had thought that the 5 senses replacement would only cause his eyes, ears, mouth and nose to move. He had not expected the damage to be so great. The shaman spirit god clutched the left side of his body. "You can actually block the 5 senses replacement. Kid, you're really strong. Something even stronger is here." Lu Yin raised his hand again and a blackish-purple substance spread out. He had directly used Mastery Realm Battle Force. Right now he was using his own strength to deal with the shaman spirit god's half-progenitor body, not the power of a progenitor. Every half-progenitor body in the 7 celestial skies could be considered a peak half-progenitor, so Lu Yin would not be careless. Underground, the shaman spirit god's eyes turned, and he floated up as he stared at Lu Yin. Lu Yin felt a chill run down his spine, and he took a step forward and moved his body. There was no change in his original position, but he knew that if he had been there just now, he would not have known what would have happened. The shaman spirit god and the corpse god were 2 completely different types of beings. The corpse god's battle style was traceable, and there was nothing he could not break through. He was incomparably tyrannical, while the shaman spirit god's battle style leaned towards the strange and difficult to track down. However, the shaman spirit god was also an origin array master. In Lu Yin's opinion, since he was an origin array master, he had to be an origin array heavenly master as well. From a certain perspective, the shaman spirit god's threat was far greater than the corpse god's. "Kiki, kid, I'm not going to play with you anymore." The shaman spirit god then disappeared once more, and the shaman spirit god's doll expanded to cover the sky once more. Lu Yin frowned as this old fellow was too strange. It was not impossible to keep him here as long as he used the power of a progenitor. However, he had not brought the general platform or the hellworm with him, as he had come here to kill Xia Ziheng. It would be inconvenient to bring them along as they would easily be watched by Wang Yuan and the others. As for the Divine Seal catalog, the moment he used it, it would attract the attention of the entire top realm. However, even if he used the Divine Seal catalog, he might not be able to keep the Shaman Spirit God here. The Shaman Spirit God was just like senior brother Qing Ping, who could rely on the strength of a half-progenitor or combat ancestor. It would not be strange for him to have any tricks up his sleeve. Above him, the giant Shaman Spirit God's doll looked down at Lu Yin. Lu Yin slowly looked up and struck out with a palm. The Shaman Spirit God's doll shattered, as it was only used to cover the Shaman Spirit God's escape. When the Shaman Spirit God's doll shattered, the light scattered once more. Lu Yin turned around and looked at Xia Ziheng, who was being controlled by Hen Exen. Xia Ziheng had not expected Lu Yin to appear at such a crucial moment, but he was not happy. Instead, his heart sank. If he had faced the Shaman Spirit God, he would have had a sliver of hope to survive, and at worst he would have betrayed the humans. However, Lu Yin had clearly not just arrived, so he must have heard what Xia Ziheng had said and knew that Xia Ziheng was willing to betray the humans. Lu Yin would not let him off. Xia Ziheng stared at Lu Yin, constantly thinking of ways to survive. Lu Yin walked over to Xia Ziheng. "You're really unlucky to have been targeted by the Shaman Spirit God." Xia Ziheng's eyelids twitched. "Why are you here?" Lu Yin replied, "I was just passing by." Xia Ziheng smiled bitterly. "Passing by? What a coincidence. Half-ancestor Ziheng, you look completely different from before. You used to curse at me every time you saw me. What's the matter now? Are you afraid?" Lu Yin asked casually. Xia Ziheng looked at Lu Yin. "You came here to kill me." Lu Yin didn't deny it. Xia Ziheng wasn't stupid. Lu Yin had purposely appeared here without attracting anyone's attention, so his goal was self-evident. "Because you were afraid of breaking the agreement, you let him attack and didn't attack yourself," Xia Ziheng said. Lu Yin smiled. "That was originally the case, but what you said to the Shaman Spirit God just now piqued my interest. A secret in exchange for your life." Xia Ziheng was bitter. "I can buy my life from the Shaman Spirit God, but I can't buy it from you." Lu Yin narrowed his eyes and looked at him. "Do you want to die?" "Of course not, but I know that you won't let me go," Xia Ziheng said. Lu Yin shook his head. "Not necessarily. It depends on whether this secret is worth it or not." Xia Ziheng solemnly replied, "It's definitely worth it. This is the greatest secret of the astral tree realm and no more than 5 people know about it." "Just because few people know doesn't mean it's useful," Lu Yin said. "The Frozen Immortal sect attacked the Lu family because they were confident that Bai Xianer could replace the Lu family and control this region of the universe. My Xia family attacked the Lu family because of our grudges and because of Xiaxia. The White Dragon tribe attacked because if they didn't, they would never be able to surpass the Lu family and the Lu family." "What about the Wang family? Why did the Wang family attack?" Xia Ziheng suddenly shouted. Lu Yin replied, "Because of Wang Si. She's just a half-ancestor. So what if she's Wang Fan's daughter? Can Bai Qi become the leader of the Frozen Immortal sect? Wang Si isn't even Wang Fan's daughter, so she's considered half an outsider to the Wang family. What right does she have to lead the attack against the Lu family? Why did ancestor Wang Fan agree?" "Wu Xiaoxian, have you never thought about this?" Xia Ziheng questioned. When he had interrogated Wang Si, the truth that he had learned was the same as what he had found out later on. The 4-way scales had acted against the Lu family because Wang Si was the one who had acted as the middleman. Thus he had naturally assumed that the Wang family was the mastermind, and the Wang family had acted because of Wang Si. He had never seriously considered why the Wang family would listen to Wang Si. No matter how powerful or smart Wang Si was, she was still just a half-ancestor. Lu Yin and Xia Ziheng exchanged glances. "The secret you want to tell me is related to Wang Si? It's related to why the Wang family attacked the Lu family. It's the Wang family's greatest secret, and it's also a secret that Wang Yi left behind to take revenge on the Wang family." Lu Yin nodded. "Tell me and I'll let you go." Chapter 2480. Why should I believe you? Xia Ziheng gritted his teeth. At this point he was ready to risk everything in order to survive. He was even willing to betray the humans, but because he had just decided to betray the humans he did not think that Lu Yin would let him go. Xia Ziheng's attitude towards the Eternals was the same as the rest of the Lu family. He would not show mercy to the Eternals or the Redbacks. Lu Yin looked at him calmly. "To me you're just an ant. There's no need for me to lie to an ant. But I've bitten you before, Xia Ziheng said. You even said that you would kill me. You want me to swear it? Lu Yin retorted. Xia Ziheng's eyes flickered, but he did not know what to do. He just wanted to survive and he was willing to pay any price. I want to contact Patriarch Xiazhen, Xia Ziheng said. Lu Yin praised him. Smart. Tell Xiazhen that I'm here. If you die, she'll naturally think that I did it and I'll break the agreement between us. Not only that, but I also want you to swear that you will never attack me, Xia Ziheng said. Lu Yin raised a brow. Hen Exin looked at him. Xia Ziheng said, not just you but also those who belong to you. You can't use any of your methods on me. Lu Xiaoxian, I admit that I'm afraid. I'm afraid that you'll attack me, but I'm even more afraid that you'll frame me. Back then you stole the sword steel and I was punished by Patriarch Shinji. I can't compare to you and I'm far from being your opponent. That's why I want to use this secret to ensure my safety in this life. Don't worry, this secret is definitely worth it. Lu Yin slowly said, don't you think that your conditions are too great? I can spare your life and even protect you back to Shenwu Plain, but you want to use this secret to exchange for your life? I swear that if this secret isn't worth it, you'll kill me immediately, Xia Ziheng shouted. He was really going all out. As long as you don't think it's worth it, the oath doesn't count. Lu Yin was shocked. You're really confident. All right, I swear that as long as the secret you tell me is worth it, I, Lu Yin, will not act against you. Even my subordinates will not act against you, Xia Ziheng. Xia Ziheng added a few more sentences and Lu Yin told him everything. Just as he said, Xia Ziheng was like an ant. If he used his life in exchange for a valuable secret, it was worth it. You can speak now, Lu Yin said. Xia Ziheng closed his eyes for a moment before reopening them. He contacted Xiazhen and informed her that he had met Lu Yin. He then passed the cloud connection stone to Lu Yin. Lu Yin, are you trying to kill Xia Ziheng? Xiazhen's voice sounded and soon her image appeared. Lu Yin glanced at Xia Ziheng. He's just passing by. If I kill him, do you think he'll still contact you? Xiazhen frowned. I don't want Xia Ziheng to use the same method to control Xiaxing, Lu Yin replied. I'm no longer interested in your Xia family. We won't interfere with each other and I won't do anything to Xia Ziheng. I hope that the Xia family won't join forces with the frigid Immortal sect to deal with me. With that he ended the call. Xia Ziheng's eyes were filled with bitterness. Contacting Xiazhen this time would make things difficult for him in Shenwu Plain. If he could guess that Lu Xiaoxian had specifically come to kill him, how could Xiazhen not have guessed it? In the end, Lu Xiaoxian had let him go. Everyone knew that something was wrong, but he had no other choice. This was the only way to ensure that Lu Xiaoxian wouldn't kill him. Even if he swore, he wouldn't feel safe. Speak now, Lu Yin said. Henshin looked at Xia Ziheng curiously. He also wanted to know such a big secret. Henshin, Lu Yin called out and waved his hand. Henshin was stunned. Was Lu Yin chasing him away? His face darkened, but he had no choice. Under Lu Yin's gaze he could only leave. After making sure that Henshin couldn't hear or see him, Lu Yin looked at Xia Ziheng. Xia Ziheng took a deep breath. The Wang family has been mining for water from the Yellow Springs for so many years, but regardless of whether it's the Wang family's mainland, Wang Fan's territory, or even the Outer Realms, there's no water from the Yellow Springs. All of the water from the Yellow Springs is in one place. These two words caused Lu Yin's expression to change. He was almost in disbelief. How is that possible? Nothing is impossible. The more you think of it, the more mysterious it is. This is a secret that Wang Yi left behind to take revenge on the Wang family. I swear, if even a single word is false, may the heavens strike me down, Xia Ziheng said solemnly. Lu Yin took a deep breath. How could the Yellow Springs water be there? That shouldn't be the case. It didn't make sense. Many things didn't make sense, but if that was the case, then Wang Fan had hidden it too deeply. It was no wonder why Xia Ziheng had said those words. If that was the case, then even if the Wang family exiled the Lu family, they would still have the confidence to control this universe. The frigid Immortal sect was confident that Bai Xianer could do it, and Wang Fan was confident that the Wang family could do the same. The four sides of the scale had their own plans and none of them were simple. This was especially true for Wang Fan, who was from the 9 mountains and 8 seas. No one knew what methods he had. If Wang Fan was like this, then Bai Wangyuan should be the same. Lu Yin realized that he had still underestimated them. by Wang Yuan and Wang Fan were both from the 9 mountains and 8 seas alongside Progenitor Qin and the symbol ancestor. Progenitor Qin and the others had left behind many incredible legends in history. By Wang Yuan and the others might be creating these legends, but Lu Yin had been deceived. Can I leave now? Xia Ziheng asked. Lu Yin looked at him. How are we going to explain this to Xiaozhen when we get back? Xia Ziheng was helpless. My inner world is on the verge of collapse. This is your doing. Lu Yin nodded. Xia Ziheng's inner world had been destroyed by the shaman spirit god, but it was more reasonable to say that Lu Yin had done it. Xia Ziheng left. Lu Yin hadn't expected to obtain an unexpected harvest while trying to kill him, but this harvest wasn't a good thing. Lu Yin also left. He had already been exposed and there was nothing he could do in the astral tree realm. Before he left, he contacted Wuxia. The shaman spirit god's half-step progenitor body escaped, and I couldn't capture him. There must be many redbacks and spies in this universe. I know. The corpse left behind by the undying god has been hidden by many people, and I can't find out exactly how many people have cultivated the Corpse King transformation. I can only try my best to find out and capture as many as I can, Wuxia replied. Lu Yin recalled what he had said to Qianxia. Senior, if there's a technique that can replace the Corpse King transformation, then we can stop the Corpse King transformation from spreading. It has to be comparable to the Corpse King transformation. You want to bring the 5th pagoda here? Wuxia asked. Lu Yin replied. The 5th pagoda is useless and the battle techniques there need to be fought over. If we want to replace the Corpse King transformation, we need to find an equivalent battle technique that has been completely passed down. I'll think about it. Wuxia fell silent for a moment. Junior, I'm very happy that Master has accepted you as a disciple. Lu Yin smiled. I'm also very happy to have you and Senior Qin Ping. It's not just us, Wuxia said before ending the call. Lu Yin was stunned. Not just them? What did that mean? Did Master have other disciples? He wanted to ask Wuxia, but since Wuxia had ended the call so decisively, it meant that he didn't want to talk about it. Lu Yin was looking forward to it. Who else was there? If Wuxia didn't want to say, then he could ask Qin Ping. Senior brother, do we have other fellow disciples? Lu Yin asked directly. In the Neoverse of the 5th mainland, Qin Ping was astonished. Did Senior Wuxia tell you? Yes. Who? I'm asking you. Lu Yin was speechless. Senior Wuxia didn't say, so I don't know either, Qin Ping replied decisively. Lu Yin was helpless. Can you guys contact Master? Did you have more? Qin Ping asked. Lu Yin replied, no. Neither do I. Otherwise I would have contacted Master when the Eternals invaded, Qin Ping replied. Lu Yin was helpless. His question was equivalent to no answer, so he left the astral trees and returned to the 5th mainland. Actually, he had a guess about Mr. Mu. Could Mr. Mu have come from a parallel universe? Otherwise, why had he never appeared when so many things had happened between the 5th mainland and the astral trees? Lu Yin was increasingly certain that Mr. Mu was in Immemorial City, which meant that Mr. Mu was in a parallel universe. Lu Yin returned to the 5th mainland and went to the back mountain of the Above Heaven sect, where someone was already waiting for him. If someone from the Xia family was here, they would have been shocked to see Xianxia, or more accurately Xianxia's clone. The one who had passed through Xinwu Continent's passage to the 3 sovereigns spacetime continuum was naturally not the real Xianxia's clone. The ones who had followed them had only been envoys and they couldn't tell the difference. Xianxia was too conceited and believed that no one in the 5th mainland could deal with him. He was right, as no one in the 5th mainland could deal with him. Even if Lu Yin borrowed Progenitor Chen's strength, he would only be able to force Xianxia back. They would only have a chance if they worked together with Elder Chan. But Elder Chan had yet to break through to the progenitor realm at that time. Xianxia's self-confidence was fine, but he had underestimated Lu Yin's methods. He had never thought that Lu Yin would banish him to a parallel universe. When Lu Yin arrived, Xianxia's clone sat down calmly. The Divine Martial Celestial General should no longer be a threat to you. Lu Yin sat down and fixed his gaze on Xianxia's face. Every time I see you I want to attack. Xianxia's clone laughed. This face is easy for you to misunderstand. You were willing to banish my Lu family. At that time, you were Xianxia's clone and you wouldn't have disobeyed him. I'm curious, how did you gain your own consciousness? Lu Yin asked. Xianxia's clone replied, how can a puppet without its own consciousness cultivate the primogenitor's secret technique? Lu Yin understood, as this clone had possessed its own consciousness from the very beginning. It's precisely because of this that he was willing to sacrifice me and let me perish together with the Lu family. Fortunately, he wasn't stupid and he knew that if I died he would have an opening against Bai Wangyuan and the others. That's why he secretly imprisoned me, hoping that he could find a way to erase my consciousness and fuse with me again, Xianxia's clone slowly explained. This was the first time they had spoken. When Xianxia had been lured into the Three Sovereigns spacetime continuum, Lu Yin had wanted to find this clone. However, this person was very cautious and he was afraid that Lu Yin would violate the agreement and attack him. Thus he had not appeared until now. Chapter 2481. You didn't show up before but now you're here. Are you confident? Lu Yin asked. Xianxia's clone looked at Lu Yin. Yes, and I'm not afraid of you breaking the agreement. Lu Yin replied, I never break an agreement but I'm curious. Where did you get your confidence from? Was it Lu Xiaoga's idea? He's smart but he can't interfere with matters of this level. My confidence comes from you, Lu Xiaoxian. Zhao Ran came with a poison-like flower tea. Xianxia was stunned. What was the meaning of this? He looked at Lu Yin in shock, his eyes filled with confusion. Lu Yin didn't see any nervousness in his eyes. He was truly confident. Come and try it. This is a specialty of our Above the Heavens sect. Every guest who comes here will have a sip. It's very comfortable. He picked up the tea and took a sip. It had to be said that the tea had evolved once again. He really did see a living creature inside. It should be a living creature. Xianxia's clone didn't move even after Lu Yin drank it. Zhao Ran watched expectantly. Your Lu family hasn't been exterminated, Xianxia said, staring at Lu Yin. Lu Yin's expression didn't change and he continued drinking. I can find them, Xianxia's clone added. Lu Yin paused and he put down his teacup. He met Xianxia's gaze. I hope you're not lying to me. And you still want me to drink tea? Xianxia's clone asked. Lu Yin smiled. Please. Xianxia's clone nodded and took a sip of the tea. If Lu Yin still wanted him to drink tea under these circumstances, then it meant that there was nothing wrong with the tea. He didn't believe that Lu Yin didn't care about the Lu family's survival. A sweet fragrance filled his mouth, but there was also a hint of bitterness. Still tasted like tea but it also tasted like a fruit-flavored drink. Not bad. Zhao Ran was delighted. There's more, I'll make some for you. She then left happily. Xianxia's clone was astonished. Your people here are very lively. Lu Yin tapped his fingers on the table. Where's my Lu family? Xianxia's clone shook his head. I didn't dare to meet you because even though I could sense the Lu clan's presence, I couldn't pinpoint their location. That's still the case, he said seriously. However, I'm sure that the Lu clan is fine because the prison lock technique hasn't been broken. Even though the Lu clan is imprisoned, it's still a protective layer. As long as the Lu clan doesn't break the prison lock, unless the Lu clan kills each other, nothing will happen, said Lin Feng. Lu Yin appeared calm on the surface, but his heart was filled with countless emotions. Overall, he was relieved. He kept saying that the Lu family would return and that the Lu family was not dead. But as long as there was no proof, his heart would not stop beating. The sorcerer spirit god also said that the Lu family was still alive, but how could he believe the Eternals? Now it was basically confirmed. He took another sip of his flower tea. According to our agreement, I've exiled Xianxia. As long as you reach the ancestor realm, you can return to Shenwu Sky and regain control of it. At that time I'll help you. Xianxia's clone sighed in admiration. No wonder you were able to reach where you are today. Wu Xiaoxian, I really have to admire you. Not everyone has the confidence to oppose the 9 mountains and 8 seas. Even Lu Xiaoxian, who had the Lu clan as his backer, couldn't have fared better than you. Lu Yin looked up and stared at Xianxia's clone. The 9 mountains and 8 seas aren't simple. Bai Wangyuan and Wang Fan already know of your existence. The only thing I can help you with is to prevent them from interfering in the family matters of Shenwu Sky. You can handle Xiazhen on your own. Xianxia's clone looked away. Xiazhen's hatred for the direct descendants of the Xia family is unquenchable, but she still has the surname Xia. So what if I'm a clone? I'm Xianxia. Can clones hurt the main body? Lu Yin suddenly asked. A few years ago when Lu Yu had died, the four-way scales had prepared a method to completely control the astral tree domain. Even if Lu Yin had ascended to godhood, Nong-yi would not have been able to easily destroy the four-way scales plan. It had been this clone that had managed to severely injure Xianxia, which had ruined the four-way scales plan. At that time, Lu Yin had wondered how a clone could injure the main body from a distance, but it did not make sense. If a clone could injure the main body, then why would Xia Zhuyo still dare to chase after Xia Luo? Xianxia should not have been able to kill this clone so easily, and the clone's death would have a huge impact on the main body. Xianxia's clone took a sip of his tea. This is the secret of the 9 clones technique. Lu Yin did not ask any further as he was only cooperating with this clone. Tell Lu Xiaoga that he will receive the promised resources. From now on he will be protected by the above heaven sect, provided that he does not betray humanity. Xianxia's clone left. He had also received the above heaven sect's protection and had even obtained a power vessel from Lu Yin. He was certain that Lu Yin would not let anything happen to him, as he was the coordinate that would lead the Lu family back. Lu Yin wanted to keep this clone and imprison him in the above heaven sect, but he did not want to violate the agreement they had made. With this clone's cautiousness, as long as he did not face a progenitor, he would be able to roam freely in this space-time. As for Lu Xiaoga, Lu Yin was looking forward to his future accomplishments. He had not even asked to remove the Death God's seal, even though he had clearly mentioned it during their first contact. If he didn't remove the Death God's seal, what was he planning to do? Lu Yin was curious. The Fifth Mainland's lockbreakers were lucky, as many had personally witnessed the Shenwu continent's luck path array. This was a sourcebox array that surpassed the 5 sealing planets. Lu Yin had also schemed against Xianxia and opened up a gap in the luck path array, which had allowed several origin array masters to witness Gu Yan's accomplishments. Now there was an endless stream of lockbreakers outside Shenwu continent who wished to become his disciple. Within the Tower of Resonating Light, Gu Yan's expression was solemn as he looked at the 7 giant sourceboxes above his head. He raised his hand and activated the wireless Gu. Hurry over, there's a problem. A few days later, Heavenly Master Xiaoming and Heavenly Master Xianxia arrived. The 3 origin array masters stared at the luck path array as if they were trying to deduce something. The location has shifted. There's an unpredictable force affecting the array, Heavenly Master Xianxia said solemnly. Heavenly Master Xiaoming replied, it should be from the other side. Gu Yan took a few steps forward and the various strange items on his body began to ring. Heavenly Master Xiaoming and Heavenly Master Xiaoming glanced at each other. The 3 monarchs have made their move. According to the records of this continent's history, the 5 sealing planets experienced a strange change 1,000 years ago, which exposed this continent. Fortunately, the other side has yet to open up a path. There's also Xianxia, Heavenly Master Xianxia added. Elder Chan walked out of the void. There's another change. Not long after, Lu Yin arrived and looked at the bottom of the Tower of Resonating Light. Xianxia being thrown into the 3 monarch space was both good and bad. The good thing was that this space-time didn't have to face Lu Yin's threat for the time being. With Xianxia gone, the pressure would be greatly reduced. However, if Xianxia was in the 3 monarch space, it was very likely that the 3 monarchs would be able to understand this space-time. This would open up a path and become a threat to the 5th mainland. Senior, you said that the luck path array would be able to seal this place for 1,000 years. What about now? Lu Yin asked. The reason why he had decided to throw Xianxia into the 3 monarch space was because Heavenly Master Gu Yan had confirmed that it could seal this place for 1,000 years. Lu Yin was certain that he would be able to reach the half-ancestor realm in 1,000 years, and the situation in this spacetime would change. Even if he had to face the 3 monarchs and Xianxia at that time, it wouldn't be impossible. Gu Yan replied, if I say it'll be 1,000 years, then it'll be 1,000 years. Let alone Xianxia, even by Wang Yuan wouldn't be a problem. It's not about cultivation. Opening up a path to a parallel spacetime is incomparably difficult. Gu Yu was able to use the 5 sealing planets to block the path, and I'll personally act with the luck path array. If we can't block it for 1,000 years, then I'll have lived for nothing. Lu Yin nodded. It would be fine as long as they could block it for 1,000 years. Bai Wang Yuan and the others weren't in a hurry to rescue Xianxia, as the 4-way Libra wasn't very friendly. What if I want to go over? Lu Yin asked. Gu Yan was astonished. You want to go to the other side? Lu Yin replied, I can't be too passive. I want to understand the situation in all of the parallel spacetime zones. Gu Yan thought about it. It's possible, but it's very dangerous. If you're discovered when you go to the other side, then they might open up a path for you. When that happens, it'll be hard to say what the outcome will be. It's best if you think about it carefully. Lu Yin looked at the bottom of the tower of resonating light. The situation was clear, and this spacetime zone no longer had the Eternals. The only ones opposing each other were himself and the four-way Libra. At most, the Fog Ancestor, who was neutral, could barely maintain a balance. If the three monarch spacetime zones interfered, then it would definitely be disadvantageous for him. Unless Xianxia became enemies with the three monarchs. It's shifted again. The other side is constantly trying to destroy the array, Heavenly Master Xiao said. Lu Yin looked at the Luck Path array and stared at the enormous Sourcebox array. Senior, what would such a large Sourcebox array contain if it was unlocked? Gu Yan's expression immediately changed, as if he had just swallowed a fly. You don't want to try. It's a hopeless process. It would take at least 1,000 years to unlock such a large Sourcebox, and even if you managed to unlock it, there might not be anything left inside. That feeling would be unforgettable. There have been people in history who have unlocked such a large Sourcebox, but what happened? He didn't say anything else, but Lu Yin could guess that the results wouldn't have been good. Judging from Gu Yan's expression, perhaps he had already tried. Heavenly Master Xiao said, the size of a Sourcebox doesn't matter. If you were given 10 Sourceboxes to unlock at most, you would obtain something from one of them. It's the same for such a large Sourcebox. Are you willing to spend millions of years unlocking it only to end up with nothing in the end? Even progenitors don't have that kind of time, Heavenly Master Xianxia replied. Lu Yin pursed his lips. He had time as long as he had enough money. After asking Heavenly Master Gu Yan and the others to keep an eye on Xinwu continent, Lu Yin returned to the Above Heavens sect. Next he would proceed with his plan, which was to attempt to understand this region of space. Understanding this region of space meant learning about it, which was a very grand idea. Even progenitors wouldn't be able to understand this region of space, let alone Lu Yin. At most they would only know about things that were related to them. What Lu Yin wanted to do was understand the majority of this region of space, and the only way to do so was to roll his die and fuse his 6 pips into another cultivator's body to search their memories. With his current strength he could fuse with a half-ancestor's body, regardless of whether it was a cultivator or an eternal corpse king. Chapter 2482. After instructing the second Night King and the others not to disturb him, Lu Yin handed some matters over to Lu Bujing and the others before announcing that he was going into seclusion. This seclusion had been part of his plan, but Wu Junqi's appearance had forced him out. Fortunately, he had dealt with Madman Lu midway and chased him out of this region of space. He had also learned of the Wang family's secrets. After delaying his seclusion for a while, he resumed. Lu Yin raised his hand and his die appeared. He tapped it and stared at it. 6 pips, he had plenty of time and resources to spend on this. 2 years later, there was a region in the flat world of the astral trees that was shrouded in darkness all year round. It was not as bleak and desolate as the Yin Mountain region, but it was so dark that it could cause one to fall into despair. The sky was dark, the ground was dark, and the rivers were dark. Even the air was dark. This was Ghost Abyss. Many people in the astral trees knew that this was Ghost Abyss, but very few dared to enter. Even those who wanted to join Ghost Abyss would find it difficult to come out, and not even their corpses would be left behind. A boundless aura of death enveloped Ghost Abyss, and the deeper one went, the greater the aura. The area was hundreds of times larger than Kun's swamp. A group of people slowly walked through this deathly silent land. There were both men and women, and all of them had terrified expressions as they stared at their surroundings. It was very difficult for them to move forward. Brother Wan, are we really going to enter Ghost Abyss? Isn't it too risky? Someone suddenly asked, sounding very abrupt in this deathly silent land. The leader of the group was a young man who looked valiant and sturdy. His skin was very dry, and it was obvious that he had been exposed to the wind and sun for a long time. Fine scars were hidden in his sparse beard, and he looked ahead with an uneasy look in his eyes. The person who killed Big Brother Chen is hiding nearby. We have to find him. The people behind him exchanged glances. That person isn't a cultivator from Ghost Abyss. He's probably dead if he comes in. Should we wait outside? Ghost Abyss is so big. If that person isn't dead by the time we leave, he'll be able to escape easily, Brother Juan said unwillingly. One of the women whispered, "It's not worth it if we all die." The man beside her quickly covered her mouth. Quiet. Brother Juan is the disciple of the Adventurer King. If you offend him, you won't be able to stay in Root's organization in the future. Although the people around them didn't say anything, they all had the same thought. Brother Qian and Brother Juan had a good relationship, but they weren't that. Brother Juan was Juan Wu, the disciple of the King of Adventurers. He had entered Junior Progenitor Planet several decades ago and had almost accompanied Long Tian to the Sovereign Realm, but Lu Yin had forced him out of the competition. If it was a few decades ago, the title of Adventurer King wouldn't have been so useful. He still managed to get on Lu Xiaoshuan's boat. Someone at the back mumbled softly. Who would have thought that the Adventurer King was actually one of the surviving members of the Lu family? No wonder he was given the title of Adventurer King after going through so many life and death situations. Now that I think about it, the four-way scales must have wanted to use someone else to do his dirty work. Who would have thought that Lu Xiaoxian would rise up and stop all of the surviving members of the Lu family from being targeted? Come to think of it, Lu Xiaoxian is quite vicious. That's enough, stop talking. Be careful, don't die here, one of the people in front shouted. At the very front, Wan Wu's expression was unsightly. He stopped and said, "Let's turn back." He wanted revenge, but these people were right. They shouldn't risk their lives. When they heard Wan Wu tell them to turn around, everyone was delighted. They looked at each other and hurried back. Suddenly there was a sound. It echoed in their ears. When they first heard the sound, everyone turned pale, thinking that they had been targeted by the people from Ghost Abyss. But as the sound grew louder, their expressions changed. Was this a technique? Everyone listened quietly, but the more they listened, the more they felt that something was wrong. Someone was horrified. This is the four-way scales Xia family's blade intent. Shut up. Wan Wu barked, his face filled with shock. This was definitely the Xia family's blade intent. He tried to circulate the star energy in his body according to the sound and unleashed a terrifying blade. He was already a peak in lighter and was only a step away from breaking through to become an emissary. The Xia family's blade intent had enlightened him and he couldn't wait to break through. He forcefully suppressed his desire and said, "Retreat." Brother Wan, this is the Xia family's blade intent. Someone was unwilling to give up and wanted to continue listening. Wan Wu said, "If you don't want to die, then retreat. The Xia family's blade intent has appeared in Ghost Abyss, so how can Shenwu Plain let it go? There's going to be a big battle here." When the others heard this, their faces turned even paler. Some people followed Wan Wu and retreated while some stayed behind. Those who had been able to join the Root organization and venture into the mortal realm were all ferocious. They had followed Wan Wu in hopes of being taken care of by the Adventurer King and changing their futures. Thus, even if they were afraid of death, they had still followed Ghost Abyss. Normal people would not have been able to enter, so how could they be willing to give up after hearing about the Xia family's blade intent? When Wan Wu walked out of Ghost Abyss, the Xia family's blade intent's voice still did not disappear. This voice not only spread throughout Ghost Abyss, but it also spread out in all directions. His expression kept changing. Something had happened. In the depths of Ghost Abyss, an ancestor opened his eyes and frowned. Why was the Adventurer King's disciple so cowardly? He had already heard the Xia family's blade intent, but he had still fled. Unfortunately, he was not that lucky. The old man was a half-progenitor in Ghost Abyss, and he was second only to the ancestor. However, he was no longer himself, he was Lu Yin. Over the past 2 years, Lu Yin had constantly merged with other people's bodies, and the weakest had been an emissary. He had merged with half-progenitors no less than 10 times, including those from the Fifth Mainland and the Cosmic Tree Realm. He had even merged with half-progenitors from the four-way scales such as Xia Yan, Wu Yao and Bai Qi. These experiences had allowed him to learn many secrets of the four-way scales, including cultivation techniques, battle techniques and even secret techniques. It would be a pity if he did not use these secrets, which was why he had ended up like this. The ancestor of Ghost Abyss was now in the mortal realm, so Lu Yin wanted to take this opportunity to make the Cosmic Tree Realm lively. Those who remained in Ghost Abyss heard about the Xia family's blade intent. Lu Yin could not have merged for too long, so he imprinted the Xia family's blade intent, Xia family's divine martial qi, frigid immortal sex wind god battle technique, Xian Fan Yao, and a series of battle techniques onto a piece of jade before tossing it out. Ghost Abyss will open its doors and bless all living beings. From now on, humans will abandon their seclusion and progress together to resist future disasters. Many pieces of jade flew out of Ghost Abyss, heading towards the middle realm, the mortal realm, and the top realm. A few days later, the entire cosmic tree realm was in an uproar as countless people fought over the jade. Xinwu Plain and the frigid immortal sect were even more excited. What? The wind god battle technique was leaked? How is that possible? Even if an ordinary disciple learned the wind god battle technique, they wouldn't be able to leak it. Only an emissary or a half-ancestor would be able to do so. Elder, it's true. It's not just the frigid immortal sect. There's also the Xia family's blade intent and divine martial qi from Xinwu Plain. Countless people are fighting over this jade. How dare you? Who leaked it? Who leaked it? It's Ghost Abyss. In Xinwu Plain, Xia Luo stared blankly at the jade in his hand, which contained the frigid immortal sex Xian Fan Yao. What a powerful battle technique. It can directly absorb the opponent's life force. It's said that it evolved from the Lu family's life form Palm. Xia Meng appeared. The divine martial qi has leaked, and the Xia family's blade intent has also leaked. Ancestor Xiazhen will arrive soon. Xia Luo looked outside. Who had leaked this information? These battle techniques could not be leaked just because someone wanted to, and so many battle techniques had been leaked at once. They all came from different sects, so who could do this? Ghost Abyss? What were they trying to do? In the central realm, when Qingchen found out about this, the first person he thought of was Lu Yin. He remembered that Lu Yin had once said that if he wanted to stop the Corpse King transformation, he would need to find a battle technique that could replace it. The divine martial qi and wind god battle techniques were both ultimate techniques of the four-way scales. What was Ghost Abyss trying to do? No one knew what Ghost Abyss's goal was, not even Ghost Abyss himself. In the sovereign realm, Bai Wangyuan raised his hand and crushed a branch. Ghost Ancestor, get out here. However, there was nothing beneath the branch. Bai Xing walked out of Qingqiu and descended upon Ghost Abyss. With a single strike he shattered Ghost Abyss. This was the first time a progenitor had truly attacked Ghost Abyss. Crown Prince Gui Qian was swept away by the shockwaves and blood trickled out of his mouth. He looked up and saw Bai Xing walking over. Where is Ghost Ancestor? Gui Qian spat out a mouthful of blood. I don't know. Bai Xing's staff swept out and shattered Ghost Abyss. At that moment Xiazhen arrived. Although she hated the Xia family's main bloodline, she was still a member of the family. The leak of the divine martial qi was a huge blow to the entire Xia family. From now on, could the divine martial qi still be called the divine martial qi? Her face sank. Where is Ghost Ancestor? The Ghost Abyss disciples were terrified, and they hid in the death energy, not daring to show themselves. Bai Xing looked at Xiazhen. He's not in the sovereign realm either. Find him. We must find him. Not only did they want to know why Ghost Abyss had leaked the battle techniques, but they also wanted to know how he had obtained them. This was all top-secret information. In the fifth mainlands above heaven, Lu Yin was leisurely drinking tea. What's going on? Tell me. I don't know what happened either. The divine martial astral qi and the wind god battle technique all leaked out from my Gui Abyss. But the problem is that I've never obtained any of these battle techniques, Gui Zhu said with an ugly expression. No one had expected him to appear in front of Lu Yin. When he had learned of this matter, he had immediately left the sovereign realm and come to the fifth mainland. Now only the fifth mainland had a place to hide. Otherwise, if he was found in the starry sky of trees, no one would be able to save him. Even if the Lu family was still around, he would still die for leaking the battle techniques of other sections. This was a huge taboo in the cultivation world. Lu Yin looked back at him. Gui Zhu, something happened to you, but you came to me. You're making things difficult for me. Gui Zhu was helpless. As a member of the Death God bloodline, I ask for Dao Master Lu's help. If I have offended you in the past, I will definitely repay you after this matter is over. Lu Yin smiled. You want me to protect you? I can't do that. My position is untenable. Gui Zhu obviously knew this. Is there a place to hide on the fifth mainland? As long as I survive this, I'll definitely be able to find out the truth. So what if you find out? Will the four-way scales forgive you? Lu Yin mocked. Chapter 2483. Gui Zhu clenched his fists as he had no other choice. If he couldn't find out the truth, then he wouldn't be able to return. He suddenly thought of something and looked at Lu Yin's back. Could this person have been the culprit? Based on the current situation, the four-way scales should have no problem attacking you. Neither I nor anyone else is qualified to protect you, Lu Yin said. Gui Zhu frowned, as it shouldn't have been Lu Yin. Lu Yin still wanted to use him to maintain the balance of power with the four-way scales, which wouldn't benefit Gui Zhu at all. There's no need to protect me. I just hope that Dao Master Lu can provide a place for me to hide. Lu Yin thought about it. I do have a place. Go. Many thanks, Dao Master Lu. Gui Zhu relaxed. Lu Yin looked back. Senior, you should understand me. Since I helped you, I should be rewarded. Gui Zhu replied, as long as we survive this, I'm willing to give Dao Master Lu 100 billion star essence. Lu Yin smiled. 100 billion was quite a lot, especially for a power like the Ghost Abyss that didn't cultivate star energy or astral sources. Star essence wasn't a necessary resource, but I want half of the Ghost Abyss. Gui Zhu was stunned and thought that he had misheard. What did you say? Lu Yin looked at him seriously. I want half of the Ghost Abyss. Zhou Xian, are you crazy? Even with Gui Zhu's current situation, he still wanted to curse. Half of the Ghost Abyss? Why don't you just say that I'll give you all of it? That's fine. Gui Zhu was speechless. Zhou Xian, you know that's impossible. How about this? I promise that as long as you help me survive this, I'll find you 500 billion star essence even if I have to steal or rob. That's enough sincerity. This amount is enough to hurt the four-way scales, and I'll definitely stand on your side against the four-way scales from now on. Don't forget that when your disguise as Long Seven was exposed, people from the Ghost Abyss risked their lives to protect you at the Summit Realm's cloud ladder. Lu Yin said, I'll repay this favor, but I haven't forgotten that you refused to let me use the Ghost Abyss's death energy during my battle with Madman Lu. You even scolded me. You're quite hostile towards me. That didn't stop you from using death energy. It's the foundation of the Ghost Abyss. If you use it, what will happen to the Ghost Abyss? Gui Zhu. Lu Yin asked, is there no room for discussion? There's absolutely no room for discussion. Gui Zhu said. Lu Yin asked, then what about the exchange? Gui Zhu was surprised. What exchange? The Eternals once left behind an eternal kingdom on the fifth mainland. The underground is filled with death energy and I can use that to exchange for half of the Ghost Abyss, Lu Yin said. Gui Zhu was puzzled. Where did the Eternals get their death chi from? Too many things have happened in this part of the universe. The Spectre clan has pledged allegiance to the Everlasting Tribe in order to preserve their inheritance. They've also cooperated with the Everlasting Tribe to use death energy to modify Corpse Kings. They want to create stronger Corpse Kings that possess the power of the Death God, Lu Yin explained. Gui Zhu was furious when he heard this. They actually colluded with the Eternals? The Spectre race in this part of the starry sky is a traitor. Lu Yin replied, they're already under my supervision, and even the Spectre clan's leader has been appointed by me. The death chi left behind by the Eternal Kingdom is real, and I used that death chi to threaten Bai Wangyuan back then. So do you want to trade? Gui Zhu refused. No, the Ghost Abyss is the Ghost Abyss. It's impossible to exchange with you. But the current Ghost Abyss might have already been destroyed by the four-way scales, Lu Yin reminded. Gui Zhu's face changed. He had already escaped, so there was no need to even think about what had happened to the Ghost Abyss. If the Ghost Abyss had really been destroyed by the four-way scales, then Lu Yin's proposed exchange would be a different form of shelter. Thinking of this, Gui Zhu's expression relaxed. Take me to the Eternal Kingdom. Lu Yin led Gui Zhu towards the Neoverse on the caged WM. With the caged WRM's speed, they quickly arrived at the Neoverse. Lu Yin sensed the coordinate seal, which had been left at the foundation of the Eternal Kingdom. Lu Yin had left behind some death chi on it, which allowed him to determine the Eternal Kingdom's position in the vast parallel universe. He opened the entrance to the Eternal Kingdom and said, please. Gui Zhu stared at the spatial entrance. This is a parallel universe, not a hidden space. Lu Yin nodded. That's right, the Eternals left behind a parallel universe. Gui Zhu frowned as he thought of Xianxia. He looked at Lu Yin in confusion. What was this kid thinking? What was he planning to do? Lu Yin was puzzled. Why aren't you going in? Senior, are you suspecting that I'm going to exile you like I did Xiaxia? That wouldn't do me any good. After all, you're the key to maintaining the balance of power. If I exile you, how am I going to control the four-way scales? Guizhou stared at the spatial entrance, still hesitating, unwilling to enter. No one would place their life in someone else's hands, especially after Xiaxinji's example. Guizhou was even more unwilling. Lu Yin said, since Senior is unwilling, please do as you wish. Is there anywhere else? No, there is. Lu Yin paused. The astral wilderness. Guizhou's eyes darkened. The astral wilderness was not a good place. To ordinary cultivators, the astral wilderness was the astral wilderness that they could explore, escape, or even take risks. It was an astral wilderness, but to experts the astral wilderness was not so simple. The more powerful a cultivator was, the more unwilling they were to go to the astral wilderness. It was like a pebble falling into a pond. At most it would cause ripples, but if a boulder fell into the pond it would cause huge waves. If a progenitor entered the astral wilderness, it would be like a boulder falling into a pond and no one would know what would happen. It was not that the more powerful a person was, the safer they would be. On the contrary, the more powerful a person was, the less safe they would be in the astral wilderness. There was an astral wilderness outside the cosmic tree, but humans rarely set foot there. Suddenly Lu Yin and Guizhou looked towards the west at the same time. They're coming so quickly. They must be in a hurry. Guizhou's expression turned ugly. Dao Master Lu, if I die, you won't have any advantage against the four cardinal scales. There's Elder Chan and Senior Brother. Right, I forgot to tell you that I have a few half-ancestors from the Above Heavens sect who are preparing to break through. I believe that one or two of them will succeed, and they won't be too weak against the four cardinal scales, Lu Yin said. Guizhou wanted to say something else, but a sharp blade streaked across the sky from the technocracy and slashed towards him. Xiaxin had made a move which gave Lu Yin a fright. How dare you leak my Shenwu Heaven's techniques? Die. Xiaxin's voice rang out. Her grudge with the Xia family had been settled, and she was now considered a celestial progenitor. Bai Wangyuan was even faster than her and he streaked across the heavens. White clouds replaced the starry sky as he extended towards the Neoverse. Lu Yin frowned. To be honest, he had never fought with Bai Wangyuan before, so he did not know much about this person. However, he was still from 9 mountains and 8 seas and Lu Yin guessed that he should be stronger than Xiaxinji. The white clouds were about to completely envelop the Neoverse. Elder Chan appeared. Ancestor Bai, this is the 5th mainland. 3 ancestral qi revolved around him, and a strand of ancestral qi transformed into Shui Wuqing. The caged Wurm roared and stared to the west. Bai Wangyuan walked down from the clouds and looked down like a god. He stared at Lu Yin and Guizhou. This has nothing to do with the 5th mainland. Lu Xiaoxian, do you want to interfere? Before Lu Yin could reply, Guizhou spoke up first. I did not leak your frozen Immortal sect or Shenwu Heaven's techniques. This has nothing to do with my Ghost Abyss. The techniques were leaked by your Ghost Abyss, and the person who leaked them was a half-ancestor. How dare you say that this has nothing to do with you? Bai Ran barked as layers of white clouds descended, bringing with them a sense of dread and oppression. This sort of oppression was incomparably sacred, to the point that it could cause fear and also cause others to kneel. Bai Wangyuan was truly furious, as he had not acted even when Lu Yin had claimed to be a Dao master. I won't interfere. Do as you please, but don't involve the 5th mainland. Lu Yin was about to retreat. Elder Chan added, we will not interfere with the internal affairs of your cosmic tree sect, but the 5th mainland must not be destroyed. Bai Wangyuan had not expected Lu Yin to retreat so easily. Xiaqin had also arrived, but she had not expected Lu Yin to retreat just like that. Guizhou grew anxious. With Lu Yin and Elder Chan retreating, he would have to face Bai Wangyuan and Xiaqin alone. He might not even be able to escape. Ancestor Bai, what do I have to say to make you believe me? Leaking your techniques won't benefit me in any way. Bai Ran replied, that's what we find strange. You're not stupid, but you've done something stupid. Perhaps you didn't willingly leak the techniques, but you definitely stole them. Death energy surged around Guizhou, and he knew that there was no point in trying to explain, so he opened his mouth and said something. Lu Yin opened the Eternal Kingdom's space. Guizhou entered without hesitation as there was nothing to consider at this point. Even being banished to a parallel spacetime was better than waiting for death here. They watched as Guizhou suddenly disappeared. Bai Wangyuan and Xia Qin stared at Lu Yin. Wu Xiaoxian, what did you do? Lu Yin shrugged. Guizhou said that he's about to start a war, but this is the fifth mainland, and it's impossible for a war between progenitors to not affect the fifth mainland. Since that's the case, I've found another battlefield for you. It's the kingdom of eternity that was left behind by the Eternals. Progenitor Bai, you've been there before, and that's where we reached an agreement. Bai Wangyuan's face sank. That's a parallel space-time. Xia Qin raised a brow. A parallel space-time? They were very sensitive to these words. Xiaxinji had been banished to a parallel space-time, so how could they dare to casually step into it? Guizhou had only entered because he had been forced to his limits. Otherwise he would have entered long ago. That's right. It's precisely because it's a parallel space-time that you can act so recklessly. How can I let you fight here? Lu Yin said matter-of-factly. You want us to enter a parallel space-time? Bai Wangyuan asked in a low voice. Banish us like you banished Xiaxinji? Lu Yin raised a brow. Don't spout nonsense. I'm just looking for a battlefield suitable for a progenitor battle. Bai Wangyuan stared at Lu Yin. You can enter, but you have to give us the coordinates and leave behind traces of us so that we can travel through the parallel spacetime. Lu Yin thought to himself that he really did understand. Only the Eternals had the coordinates seal, and the Hexagon Society's ability to travel through parallel spacetime had been stolen from the Eternals. They definitely had the coordinates to travel through the Hexagon Society, or at the very least, to travel through that reincarnation space. Chapter 2484. How can I do that? I'm the only one. If I give it to you, what should I do? Lu Yin replied. Without the coordinates, how are we supposed to return? I won't seal it. Just come back. These words made Elder Chan embarrassed. If Bai Wangyuan and the others dared to enter, Elder Chan was certain that Lu Yin would not hesitate to seal off the passage and throw them into a parallel space-time. Lu Yin's expression was serious and sincere, but in the eyes of Bai Wangyuan and the others, it was shameless. Wang Fan arrived. Where's Guizhou? Let's go in, Bai Yan said. Wang Fan was puzzled. He glanced at Lu Yin and then at the spatial tear. Is that a parallel spacetime? Guizhou went in. The coordinates are in Lu Xiaoshuan's hands. He told us to go in and find Guizhou, Xiaozhen said. Wang Fan stared blankly at Lu Yin. You're letting us in? Lu Yin pursed his lips. It's up to you whether you want to enter or not. In any case, Guizhou is inside. Lu Xiaoxian, this matter has nothing to do with you. Guizhou leaked my cold immortal sex and divine martial heavens techniques, so he must be dealt with, Bai Zhe said. Lu Yin replied, it has nothing to do with me, so I won't interfere. Do as you please. Give us the coordinates, we'll go and find Guizhou, Xia Qin said. There's death chi in there, and that's the power that I cultivate. How could I possibly leave any traces of you behind? What if you sneak in and attack me while I'm cultivating? Wouldn't I be dead for sure? Xiaozhen and Wang Fan looked at Bai Wangyuan. Bai Wangyuan nodded. There's a deathly aura beneath the eternal kingdom. There's even death chi here. Wouldn't we be at a disadvantage if we went in to look for Guizhou? Xiaozhen raised an eyebrow. Bai Wangyuan and Wang Fan looked at each other. What loss could he possibly suffer? No matter how much death chi there was, how much could Guizhou increase his strength? 9 Mountains 8 Seas was different from ordinary Ancestor Realm experts. Even though Guizhou cultivated the power of the Death God, he was not the Death God's successor, so the characteristics of his death chi were not enough to make up for the gap between him and 9 Mountains 8 Seas. The aura of death originated from the Death God, while the 9 Mountains and 8 Seas originated from the primogenitor. They're not looking for me, so they won't do anything to me. He then pointed at the nearby commander appointment stage. Besides, I'm capable of protecting myself. On the fifth mainland, not only could he use various progenitor realm techniques, but he could also borrow progenitor Chen's strength. It would not be easy to deal with him. Moreover, Elder Chan was always there. Elder Chan nodded. Then be careful. He also needed to oversee Shenwu continent to prevent any accidents from happening. Soon Elder Chan left. Lu Yin faced off against Bai Wangyuan, Wang Fan and Xiaozhen by himself. However, just as he said, Bai Wangyuan and the others were not looking for trouble with him, nor did they intend to violate the agreement. They would not attack him even if it was because of the matter with Guizhou. If there was no other choice, he would hand over the coordinates. The starry space was silent, only the sounds from the constellations could be heard. No flying ships dared to approach this area. Even from afar they were intimidated by the power of the progenitor realm. Lu Yin propped up his chin with one hand and sat on the prison WRM's head as he watched Bai Wangyuan and the others discuss. Soon after, Bai Wangyuan said, "Tell Guizhou to come out. We won't do anything to him, and we also believe that he wasn't the one who leaked the secret art. However, the truth of this matter must be investigated." Lu Yin pointed at Eternal Kingdom. "Go talk to him. Zhou Xian, this matter originally had nothing to do with you, but you provided this spacetime for Guizhou to hide. No matter how you look at it, you can't stand it. Even if Wuxia comes, he has no reason to help you. You can't do whatever you want in this universe. Since you've already interfered, there are some things that need to be done by you." Lu Yin retorted, "Are you trying to reason with me?" "You can say that," Bai Yin replied. Lu Yin thought about it. "All right, I'll help you talk to Guizhou." He then entered Eternal Kingdom. Bai Wangyuan and the others were stunned. Was it that easy? Within the Eternal Kingdom, Lu Yin greeted Guizhou after entering and then turned around to leave, leaving Guizhou at a loss. "He's not coming out," Lu Yin said directly. Xiaxia frowned. "He's not coming out because he's guilty." "Think so too. Why don't you guys go in and fight?" Lu Yin asked. Xiaxia felt that Lu Yin was rather hateful. The last time they had met, due to past grievances and because it involved the Xia family, they had completed a deal. Their standpoints were similar, and she felt that Lu Yin was just as Elder Chan had said, ruthless and scheming. This time, however, their standpoints were different. She felt that Lu Yin was not only shameless and liked to lie through his teeth, but he also had the initiative at every turn. Wang Fan said, "Zhou Xian, let Guizhou come out. We definitely won't do anything to him." Lu Yin replied, "He's not coming out." "Ask again," Wang Fan said. Lu Yin sighed. "I really shouldn't have come. Your matters have nothing to do with me." He then entered Eternal Kingdom again and left under Guizhou's confused gaze. "He's not coming out." Wang Fan's eyes narrowed. "What if we swear that we won't do anything to him?" Bai Wangyuan and Xiaxia looked at Wang Fan in surprise. Lu Yin was shocked. "You're really taking care of Guizhou. You can even swear something like that? Regardless of whether he leaked the cultivation method or not, at the very least he must have stolen the cultivation method. How could you forgive him for that?" "No, he leaked the techniques of the frozen Immortal sect in the Xinwu plane, so it has nothing to do with your Wang family." "Wang Fan, why are you being so proactive?" Wang Fan said. "The cultivation techniques of the frigid Immortal sect and divine martial plane have already been leaked. If there's another leak, it'll definitely be from my Wang clan. Since he stole the cultivation techniques of the frigid Immortal sect and divine martial plane, how could he not steal the cultivation techniques of my Wang clan?" Lu Yin praised. "As expected of Ancestor Wang Fan, you're very thoughtful. All right, I'll ask again." Just as he was about to turn around, he suddenly thought of something. "Since Ancestor Wang Fan is so sure that Guizhou stole your Wang family's techniques, can you really not do anything to him?" Xiaxia replied, "Senior Wang Fan, my Xinwu plane's techniques have already been leaked, and Guizhou cannot escape responsibility. If we don't pursue him, will anyone else be able to steal our techniques in the future?" Although Bai Wangyuan did not say anything, his meaning was the same. They hoped that Guizhou would come out and investigate the matter, but it was impossible for them to swear that they would not attack him. Wang Fan replied, "What I mean is that we shouldn't attack him now and wait until we investigate the matter." Lu Yin agreed, "That's true. Once we investigate the matter, it won't be too late to act if Guiyuan really did steal the techniques." At that moment, Wang Fan's wireless goo vibrated and he accepted the call. "Ancestor, we've discovered a Guiyuan disciple hiding in our Wang family's continent." The wireless goo was transmitted through movement and Wang Fan saw it. Bai Wangyuan, Xiaxia and the rest also saw it. Wang Fan's expression sank and he replied, "Are you sure it's Guiyuan's people?" "Definitely. They use death energy and the meditative forgetting technique." Bai Wangyuan sneered, "Your Wang family's people. Even our family was not spared. What a Guiyuan." Wang Fan's expression turned ugly. "Where is he?" "He escaped." Wang Fan was furious. The great Wang family actually allowed someone to come and go as they please. The other side was terrified, not just one person. There are others in the family and outside the continent. Wang Fan angrily crushed the wireless goo and stared at the parallel spacetime. Lu Yin laughed. Ancestor Wang Fan is truly worthy of being called 9 mountains and 8 seas. You can even predict things. You guessed correctly, and the next technique to be leaked will be your Wang family's techniques. Wang Fan stared at Lu Yin. Have Guizhu come out. Lu Yin shrugged. If he doesn't come out, you can go in and find him yourself. I remember that there are specters in your abandoned land, Wang Fan suddenly said as he stared at Lu Yin. Bai Wangyuan and Xiaxin also looked at Lu Yin. Lu Yin calmly replied, yes. Do you suspect that it was done by the specters in our region? Wang Fan replied, we'll know once we investigate. Lu Yin replied, sure. Back then the specters sought refuge with the Eternals to protect themselves. After the Eternals were blocked outside the Starfall Sea, they sought refuge with the Absolute Ones and rebelled against me. I captured all of them and put them under surveillance. There are records of how many of them there are and what their cultivation levels are. Bai Wangyuan did not believe that the specters had the ability to steal their techniques. It should be Gui Yuan. Stealing techniques isn't something that can be done overnight. How long has it been since our 2 spacetimes came into contact? Wang Fan muttered to himself, his thoughts unknown. The truth is obvious. Only Gui Yuan can cultivate death energy and waste time to steal our techniques. Lu Yin, what will it take for you to hand over Guizhu? Xiaxin asked. Lu Yin was troubled. It's not that I don't want to, but... What will it take for you to hand over the coordinates? Just say it, Bai Min said. They no longer wanted to negotiate with Guizhu. Wang Fan looked up at Lu Yin. Lu Yin was also troubled, since that's the case. He was about to say that he would accompany Bai Wangyuan and Xiaxin. As for the coordinates, he would not hand them over. Of course, he had already thought of the conditions, but before he could say anything, an even more shocking piece of news arrived that suppressed the matter of Guizhu. Bai Xian'er was about to break through. Bai Wangyuan looked at the wireless goo and was stunned for a moment before becoming overjoyed. He sent a message over, Xian'er is about to break through to half-ancestor? Yes. It was Bai Xing. Lu Yin's gaze trembled. Bai Xian'er really wasn't a half-ancestor? He had always been guessing Bai Xian'er's strength. Several decades ago, the 5th mainland's 3 gates had been broken through, and Bai Xian'er had crushed a 6th mainland's half-ancestor to death with a single finger. With such a cultivation, she should have been a half-ancestor. However, many people had said that she had not broken through to half-ancestor, while others had said that she had broken through long ago. In short, there were all sorts of rumors, and Lu Yin couldn't differentiate between the truth and lies. He had also asked Senior Wuxia about it, but Senior Wuxia's answer was that she had not broken through to half-ancestor yet. This was because he had not sensed the inner world of a half-ancestor from her body. Now she was finally about to break through. Bai Xian'er's breakthrough was not good news for anyone other than the frozen Immortal sect, including the Xia and Wang families. Wang Fan's expression immediately changed. Lu Yin's expression also turned ugly. He was already apprehensive that Bai Xian'er had not broken through to half-ancestor yet. Once she did, she would only be a step away from the progenitor realm. With Bai Xian'er's foundation, she should have broken through to half-ancestor long ago, but she had only broken through now. Lu Yin could not imagine how deep her foundation was. Chapter 2485. The first time they had clashed in the Red Flower Garden, the power in his heart had been completely useless against her. But after that, especially the bet between the culinary god and Sir Feather, he'd had the misconception that he could kill her or at least steal her Book of Destiny. If not for Bai Xing's appearance, he would have done just that. He had been growing stronger, but Bai Xian'er had remained the same. This was abnormal in itself. Even a 3-year-old child in the astral tree knew about Bai Xian'er's talent, but she hadn't improved after so many years. How far would her breakthrough take her, and what would it bring to him? Lu Yin wasn't sure. Of all the humans, the one he feared the most was still Bai Xian'er. Is she finally breaking through? After waiting for so long, she's finally breaking through. Even Bai Wangyuan, a powerful being from the 9 mountains and 8 seas, was overjoyed by Bai Xian'er's breakthrough. Xiaxin's expression was solemn. Although Bai Xian'er was a junior, she was a topic that no one could avoid. The shock she had caused when she had broken through to become an emissary was still fresh in their minds. That had caused the Eternals to launch a large-scale attack. What would happen now that she was a half-step ancestor? Ancestor Bai, there's no need to worry about Xian Heir's breakthrough, but things will be different if someone causes trouble, Bai Xing transmitted. Bai Wangyuan's smile faded as he looked up at Lu Yin. Xia Zhen and Wang Fan also looked at Lu Yin. The Fifth Mainland and the Astral Tree were able to coexist peacefully because Lu Yin had threatened Bai Xianer. If there was anyone who could cause trouble during her breakthrough, it would be Lu Yin. Lu Xiaoxian, please don't leave my sight for the time being, Bai Wangyuan said bluntly. His entire demeanor had changed and it was like the calm before the storm. He wouldn't allow Lu Yin to do anything. Lu Yin's eyes flickered. He really wanted to use fate to disrupt Bai Xianer's breakthrough, but he hadn't expected Bai Wangyuan to target him. Was it a coincidence? Lu Yin looked at the Eternal Kingdom. If he hadn't set things up and forced Guizhou into a corner, he wouldn't have come. Guizhou's arrival had attracted Bai Wangyuan's attention, and Bai Xianer had broken through at this time. Was it a coincidence or was there a pair of eyes watching him? Does Bai Xianer have the ability to spy on me? He recalled the time when he had disguised himself as Yu Hao and met Bai Xianer in the Red Flower Garden. Bai Xianer had also exposed his plans in the Shenwu sky. How much could Bai Xianer know? The Book of Destiny had been burned. He had other motives for forcing Guizhou this time, but Bai Xianer's breakthrough had disrupted his plans. He couldn't avoid Bai Wangyuan and doing so would only make him go crazy. Congratulations, Ancestor Bai. Bai Xianer has broken through and the cold immortal sect has reached a new height. As a congratulatory gift, I'll help you bring Guizhou out. Bai Wangyuan rode the prison flood dragon into the Eternal Kingdom. Don't go. Bai Wangyuan barked, suddenly attacking. No matter where Lu Yin went, he would not allow it. However, Lu Yin was just beside Eternal Kingdom. With the caged WRM's speed, Bai Wangyuan wouldn't be able to stop him. When Bai Wangyuan saw the Hellworm charge into Eternal Kingdom's space, he stepped in as well. As long as Lu Yin entered, he would dare to enter as well. He had followed Lu Yin into Eternal Kingdom before. Wang Fan's speed wasn't slower than Bai Wangyuan's. He wanted to enter Eternal Kingdom. Lu Yin is advancing. The moment he entered Eternal Kingdom, he looked back and closed it without hesitation. Bai Wangyuan and Wang Fan appeared in front of Eternal Kingdom's spatial crack and looked at planet Anshui. The spatial crack had already disappeared. Bai Wangyuan's expression was uncertain. Lu Yin had left his line of sight and no matter where he went he would feel uneasy. He hurriedly contacted Bai Xing. Lu Xiaoxian is hiding in a parallel space. I don't know what he's doing. Tell Xian to leave. All right. For this breakthrough, both Bai Wangyuan and Bai Xianer had prepared for a long time. Even if Lu Yin suddenly appeared, they still had a plan to deal with him. They couldn't be led by the nose by Lu Yin. When she learned that Lu Yin had hidden in a parallel space, Bai Xianer tore through the void without hesitation. I don't believe that Lu Xiaoxian has a way to affect me, but just in case I'll take the final step. She looked at Bai Xing. Ancestor Xing, no matter how prepared you are, no one can say for sure that you'll succeed. If I fail. She paused and her gaze became unprecedentedly serious. Kill Lu Xiaoxian immediately. With that she left. Aside from Bai Wangyuan, even Bai Xing didn't know where she went. On the Fifth Mainland, Bai Wangyuan's expression was gloomy. Beside him, Wang Fan's expression was just as gloomy. Xia Zhen stared at Wang Fan. He hadn't seen wrongly. Lu Yin had immediately closed the door after entering the parallel space. The last person he had looked at was Wang Fan. Why wasn't he looking at Bai Wangyuan? Why was he looking at Wang Fan instead? Furthermore, many of Wang Fan's actions didn't seem right. Bai Wangyuan was rushing in for Bai Xianer, but what about him? Why was he rushing in? Was it just because he wanted to find Guizhou and find out the source of the technique's leak? It wasn't Wang Fan's style to enter an unpredictable place for a technique. Lu Yin didn't care about the outside world anymore. With Elder Chan around, Bai Wangyuan and the others wouldn't do anything. Guizhou saw Lu Yin enter for the third time and he quickly went forward. Dao Master Lu, what's going on outside? Lu Yin's face was pale. Bai Wangyuan and Xia Zhen acted against me because of you. They'll definitely look for you to find out the source of the technique's leak. Guizhou became serious. They're really desperate. Right, is it just Bai Wangyuan and Xia Zhen? Lu Yin nodded. Something seems to have happened in the cosmic tree realm. Wang Fan and the dragon ancestor didn't come. Guizhu wanted to ask more questions, but Lu Yin waved his hand and summoned Lu Jian's general appointment platform. He cautiously said to Guizhu, "There are 2 coordinates in this space-time and they've already taken one of them. Once they enter, a fierce battle will be unavoidable. Prepare yourself, Guizhu. I've sacrificed too much for you. Once this matter is over, you must give me a satisfactory reward." Guizhu replied, "I will. With my blood I summon a general," Lu Yin growled, and a progenitor's aura gushed out from the general appointment platform as Ichi appeared. At the same time, a golden light appeared above Lu Yin's head that illuminated the entire Ionian kingdom, illuminating every corner. The God Seal catalog appeared as Nong Yi's figure walked out. Guizhu gasped. "With your own strength you have the power of several progenitors. Every time I see this scene I'm amazed. You can be considered the strongest envoy since the Above Heaven sect." Lu Yin's pupils turned into runes as a miniature candle god appeared on his shoulder. Rune lines covered the surroundings. When the rune lines appeared, Guizhu looked around. "The rune progenitor's power is truly mysterious." Lu Yin said, "There's a large amount of death energy below. Fighting here should be of great help to you, Guizhu." Guizhu shook his head. "Not much help. Before I reached the progenitor realm, the large amount of death energy here was equivalent to an endless supply of power. But after breaking through, I gained my own power system. In fact, I'm no longer the same as the death god." He looked at Lu Yin. "You've always thought that I coveted your death god's power, but after breaking through, it's useless even if you give me the death god's power. I can't change anymore." Lu Yin was surprised. "You can't cultivate the death god's power anymore?" Guizhu sighed. "I can't cultivate it anymore. That's a pity. Now that I think about it, the Xia family's 9 clones technique is really useful. It allows one to cultivate 9 different powers," Lu Yin said. Guizhu smiled bitterly. "The 5th mainland is led by the Lu family, and below them are a group of families with primeval surnames. These families have unparalleled power. The Xia family's 9 clones, the Bai family's secret techniques and battle skills, the Wang family's meditative forgetting art, and so on. Although they can't compare to the Lu family, they're still incomparable to ordinary cultivators. It's almost impossible for us to surpass them. But you've also cultivated the death god's power, and it's not inferior to my Lu family's." Guizhu replied, "Besides you, no one else has cultivated the complete death god's power. Not only do you have the Lu families and the death god's power systems, but you also have the rune progenitor, Ku progenitor, and Qin progenitor's powers. Lu Xiaoxian, you'll definitely be the strongest human master in the future." "Not enough," Lu Yin said. Guizhu was surprised. "What's not enough?" Lu Yin was about to speak when the void rippled in the distance. His expression changed. "It's here." Guizhu stared into the distance. Suddenly, a chill surged up his head, bringing with it an intense sense of danger. The danger did not come from where he was looking but from behind him. Guizhu did not even look back and was just about to leave when he discovered that a green light had enveloped him. "No me?" It was Lu Xiaoxian. Lu Yin made his move, and a green leaf enveloped Guizhu's body while Ichi viciously swatted down with his slipper. With a thump, Guizhu's back was viciously struck by the slipper and he fell to the ground. Lu Yin's gaze turned cold and he made his move. His rune lines directly weakened Guizhu's strength, and he raised a hand to press down on Guizhu. His palm realm battle force covered his arm as he unleashed a clear void palm. Ichi swatted down with his slipper again. Nong Yi pressed down with his palm, and his progenitor's power transformed into a green pillar that shot into the sky. Within the green leaf, Guizhu coughed up blood as his deathly aura transformed into a sharp blade that tore through the void. He looked up and saw Ichi's slipper and the green pillar of light. He shouted, "Lu Xiaoxian." With a loud boom, Guizhu's body was smashed into the kingdom of eternity, and the ground completely shattered. Deathly aura surged out from the ground and spread out in all directions, as if a boulder had been smashed into a lake. Lu Yin did not want to give Guizhu any chance to react, so Ichi chased after him and swatted down with his slipper again. Underground, a strange long weapon pierced out from the ground and collided with the slipper. The weapon was composed of black beads that took the shape of a halberd or spear. With a thump, the black bead at the top of the weapon shattered, followed by the rest of the black beads. They were unable to stop the slipper at all. Guizhou stood underground and gripped the weapon in his right hand while waving his left. Death pass. As soon as he spoke, endless deathly aura covered the void and blocked Nong Yi's attack. It was as if space itself had been split in two, and then the deathly aura formed a guillotine that slashed down at Lu Yin. Lu Yin hurriedly rode the prison drake to avoid it. The sky is a guillotine and the deathly aura is a blade. Lu Xiaoxian, you're courting death. Guizhou roared as his guillotine viciously slashed down. Chapter 2486. The caged worm raised its claws to block the blade and roared as it retreated. Lu Yin raised his hand and the sky was bound to overturn the heavens. Overturning heaven palm. The guillotine trembled and the blade suddenly reversed. Lu Yin had wanted to make the blade slash downwards, but he was powerless to do so. His overturning heaven palm could affect progenitors, which was already quite terrifying. It was impossible for him to control a progenitor's battle technique. At the same time, Nong Yi raised his hand as if he was holding a hoe and slammed it down. The world shook and Guizhou was forcefully pressed into the ground once more. The guillotine formed by death energy vanished. Lu Yin stared down and summoned another half-ancestor from Lu Jian's platform, who then charged into the ground. Under the golden light of the God Seal catalog, Nong Yi raised his hand again. At that moment a snow-white skeleton shot out from the ground, causing Lu Yin's eyes to narrow. Nong Yi's hand slammed down and he attacked again. Beneath the ground, snow-white skeletons covered in dark death energy crawled out like giant beasts that had awoken. They took Nong Yi's attack head-on. Guizhou stood among the skeletons and glared at Lu Yin. Why did you sneak attack me? Lu Yin looked at Guizhou deeply. Guizhou was injured but he did not know how serious his injuries were. I wanted to test Senior Guizhou's strength. Guizhou stared at Lu Yin. Only an idiot would believe this kid's words, but why had he attacked? Did you make a deal with Bai Wangyuan and the others? Lu Yin asked. I told them that I just wanted to test Senior's strength. After all, we're both from the Death God bloodline, and Junior is curious about what it's like to reach progenitor with death energy. Was that guillotine just now Senior's battle technique? Lu Xiaoxian, I don't want to be your enemy. Let's stop here, Guizhou said. Lu Yin's lips curled up. But Junior still hasn't seen what's so special about reaching progenitor with death energy. Qi then slammed down with a slipper from the side. Lu Xiaoxian, you're courting death. Guizhou roared as one of the bones was smashed to pieces by the slipper. He then controlled the giant skeleton to leap through the void and grab at Lu Yin. The Helldrake roared at the sky and raised its claws to grab at the skeleton. Although the skeleton was not as large as the Helldrake's main body, it had not yet revealed its true form, so the two were about the same. Guizhou suddenly rushed out of the skeleton and raised his weapon to stab at Lu Yin. Under the power of a progenitor, Lu Yin was no match for Guizhou at all. Even if he wanted to use the strategy secret art to dodge, he would not be able to do so. Secret techniques were too weak in front of progenitors. However, Yang Kai was able to use reverse step and quickly retreated, distancing himself from Guizhou. Qi raised his slipper from behind and smashed it down. The slipper had been upgraded several times, and even the undying god had been beaten half to death, let alone Guizhou. In the current starry sky, there was almost no object that could resist the slap of a slipper. Lu Xiaoxian, are you really going to fight to the death? Guizhou roared. Lu Yin's expression was cold. Senior, let this junior see how the death energy of progenitor is like. Fine, if you want to die, then this old master will fulfill your wish. At worst, you'll just have to flee to the astral wilderness. The sky darkened as the entire space darkened. Thorns shot out from the void and formed trees. This was a forest formed from death energy. This was the ancestral world and it was called the Black Forest. Once you enter the Black Forest, don't even think about leaving. Do you really think that you can deal with this old master by yourself? If not for Wuxia, you would not have been able to deal with Madman Lu. Guizhou's cold voice filled the void, and Lu Yin could not even pinpoint his location. Lu Yin did not underestimate Guizhou. In fact, he was even more apprehensive of Guizhou than Xiaoxinji was. He could see through Guizhou's methods, but Guizhou was different. After all, he cultivated death energy. To be able to cultivate to progenitor using death energy, even if it was not the true power of the death god, it was still no small matter. This was also why Gui Yuan had been able to exist peacefully in the astral tree domain for so many years. Even the Lu family had thought highly of Guizhou back then, let alone the four-way scales. Guizhou had a power system that was feared by everyone. Trapped in the Black Forest, jailed Reikichi and Lu Yin felt as if they were stuck in a swamp. They could not see or touch anything and the endless darkness swallowed them up. Lu Yin did not dare to hesitate as the sense of crisis almost made his scalp explode. Even with the God-sealing catalog wrapped around him, he did not feel safe. He had no choice but to take out the Death God's left arm. The moment the Grim Reaper's left arm appeared, the Black Forest began to twist and distort before being absorbed. Guizhou was shocked. They were both progenitors of death energy, but the difference between him and the Death God was so exaggerated. The Death God's left arm had directly broken through his ancestral world. Lu Yin had not expected the Black Forest to be so easily destroyed by the Death God's left arm. It was not that Guizhou was weak, but rather that the Death God was too strong. They both cultivated the same power, but the difference between them was like heaven and earth. Lu Yin held the Death God's left arm and took out Go Lian. "Senior, feel for yourself the difference between you and the true Death God." Guizhou barked. "Lu Xian, why are you attacking this old master?" The Black Forest continued to distort as the death energy was absorbed by the Death God's left arm like smoke. It seemed as if the Death God's left arm was on the verge of being destroyed. Lu Yin stared at Guizhou without saying a word, while the left arm and Go Lian continued to absorb the death energy. It was not just the Black Forest's death energy anymore, but also the underground death energy. Guizhou was not unfamiliar with this scene, as Lu Yin had used this move to deal with Madman Lu. Madman Lu had not died from this move, but that did not mean that Guizhou would not die. Guizhou knew that he was no match for Madman Lu. "Lu Xian, what are you trying to do?" Guizhou barked again. Lu Yin still did not speak and he simply stared at Guizhou. The left arm and Go Lian's power was increasing, and with jailed Reikichi and the God-sealing catalogs Nong-yi protecting them, even if Guizhou wanted to attack now, it would be difficult to injure Lu Yin, at least not in a short period of time. As long as Lu Yin had a little more time, Guizhou would be able to attack. This attack had severely injured Xianxia and Bai Wangyuan, and it had also injured Madman Lu. This attack was enough to make any progenitor feel apprehensive. Madman! Guizhou was furious as he could not understand why Lu Yin would do such a thing. Lu Yin had not said a single word, and he had launched a sneak attack with all his might. He could not even communicate with Lu Yin. Helpless, Guizhou tore through the void and left. Under normal circumstances, going from one parallel spacetime to another was a matter of luck, unless one had coordinates. Xianxia had been exiled in such a manner. However, Guizhou had appeared directly on the fifth mainland after tearing through the void, and he had then fled without hesitation. Bai Wangyuan, Xiazhen and the others were all stunned. The next moment, Lu Yin opened up a spatial rift with the coordinates, aimed at the fleeing Guizhou and slashed down from afar. If it had been anyone else, Lu Yin's attack would not have been able to hit them. After all, there was a time difference and even a split second was enough for a progenitor. However, this was Guizhou and he cultivated death energy. Lu Yin's attack not only contained the death energy from the Eternal Kingdom, but also the death energy from Guizhou's ancestral world. This death energy was like a parallel spacetime. The coordinates were extremely eye-catching in the vast expanse of space, so eye-catching that Lu Yin could hit them even with his eyes closed. Bai Wangyuan's reaction was not slow either, and he acted at the same time as Lu Yin's death god descended. The white clouds had already covered the Neoverse, so it was impossible for Guizhou to escape in an instant. The death energy turned into a rainbow that darkened space, instantly connecting Guizhou and Lu Yin. Lu Yin suppressed Go Lian and slashed at Guizhou. Guizhou roared and his ancestral world appeared once more. However, this time the Black Forest kept closing in on Guizhou and it actually swallowed Guizhou. Lu Yin's expression changed. What was that? The next moment, a lotus-like object bloomed in space. From a distance, it looked like a lotus flower that was filled with a dark demonic aura. However, up close it was actually petals that were filled with strange black thorns. It looked like a man-eating flower that could devour anything. The death god descended, and the terrifying man-eating flower split apart before finally shattering. It reformed into Guizhou, who continuously retreated and coughed up blood. His body was covered in wounds and he suddenly raised his head. In the distance, Xiaxin's eyes narrowed. Was this Wang Fan? Not only Xiaxin but Bai Wangyuan also saw him. Lu Yin's eyes narrowed. So it was actually like this? How? Could it be one of the 9 clones? He had set up this trap to expose the relationship between the Ghost Abyss and the Wang family. Xia Ziheng had previously told him that the Wang family's Yellow Spring was not in the Wang family mainland, nor was it in Wang Fan's sovereign realm. Instead it was in the Ghost Abyss. The Wang family and the Ghost Abyss had an inexplicable relationship. At that moment Lu Yin's fear of Wang Fan increased by several levels. All this time Bai Wangyuan had been the one to negotiate with the 4-way scales, and Xia Xinji had been the one to fight with him. Wang Fan and the dragon ancestor's presence was not strong, but who would have thought that Wang Fan was the one who had concealed himself the most? Lu Yin had originally thought that Guizhu was working with Wang Fan, which was why he had set up this trap to force Guizhu into a desperate situation and cut off one of Wang Fan's arms. However, he had not expected Guizhu to be Wang Fan. Lu Yin did not know what method Wang Fan had used to create an existence similar to the Xia clan's 9 clones, allowing him to cultivate into Guizhu. He was the 9 mountains and 8 seas Wang Fan, but he was also the Ghost Abyss Guizhu. Lu Yin had originally wanted Bai Wangyuan and the others to force the truth out, but Bai Xian'er's breakthrough had left him with no choice. Fortunately, he had managed to force out the truth about Guizhu. Unfortunately, he had not been able to kill Guizhu. Guizhu's strength had indeed exceeded his expectations, and he was not much weaker than Xia Xinji. He had been able to withstand the Death God's slash, and his final form had allowed Lu Yin to see how terrifying Guizhu's death chi was. That was Guizhu's appearance when he used death chi to become an ancestor. On the other side, Bai Wangyuan's expression was gloomy. He had also made a move, but the one who had blocked him at the crucial moment had been Wang Fan. Wang Fan's expression was calm as he looked at Lu Yin. No wonder you wanted us to swear that we wouldn't attack Guizhu. No wonder you were in such a hurry to enter. No wonder you blocked me, Bai Wangyuan said in a low voice as he looked at Wang Fan with a strange gaze. He had known this person for many years and they were both from the 9 mountains and 8 seas, but at this moment he felt like a stranger. Xiaxin also looked at Wang Fan with incomparable fear. Wang Fan stared at Lu Yin. If not for that attack he would have been able to explain why he had blocked Bai Wangyuan. However, Lu Yin's attack had revealed everything, and Wang Fan could not hide anything. Why did this little brat attack Guizhu so heavily? This was not only Wang Fan's question but also Bai Wangyuan and the others. Chapter 2487. In the current situation, Lu Yin had joined forces with Mu Xie and Old Chan to resist the 4-way scales. The Fog ancestor Gui Yuan and Nong Yi were basically neutral, but they were still biased towards Lu Yin, which was why the situation had reached a stalemate. No matter how one looked at it, Lu Yin shouldn't have attacked Guizhu, so what would Nong Yi think? However, Lu Yin had still acted and he had been quite ruthless at that, vowing to kill Guizhu. Lu Yin rode the caged worm out of the Eternal Kingdom. Xia Zhen was in front of him and Bai Wangyuan and Wang Fan were in a standoff in the distance. The furthest away was Guizhu, who was another Wang Fan. His body was flickering and he seemed to be in a very strange state. After a moment of silence, Bai Wangyuan said again, Wang Fan, you have to give us an explanation. If you're Guizhu, then you're the one who leaked information about the Cold Immortal sect and the Divine Martial Heavens techniques. Wang Fan denied it. I didn't leak any of your techniques. How do you explain Guizhu? What's your relationship with him? Bai Wangyuan asked. Xiaxin was curious. You've cultivated 9 clones? Wang Fan looked at Xiaxin. Not all clones are called 9 clones. This has nothing to do with the Xia clan's 9 clones. That's not a clone but a shadow, Bai Wangyuan interrupted and stared at Wang Fan. I understand now. The 9 mountains and 8 seas battle technique you obtained is called the Shadow of Life. Wang Fan said, so you do know about it. Does that mean you were the one who investigated this combat technique back then? Bai Wangyuan shook his head. It's not just me. The Lu family, the Xia family and even the Lu family have all investigated this. This battle technique can allow a person to split into 2, allowing the shadow to become another person. It's similar to the 9 clones technique, so how could people not pay attention to it? Throughout the history of mankind, many battle techniques can be traced back to their origins. Perhaps the origin of the 9 clones technique came from this battle technique. In other words, the inheritance of the mountains and seas you obtained belonged to the Xia clan. Wang Fan explained, Xiachan might have been the earliest inheritor of the mountains and seas, but he did not belong to the Xia family. The mountains and seas belong to the entire human race, and they belong to the 6 mainlands, not just our 5th mainland. The 5th mainland's Daoist sect era was the most glorious era because all of the 9 mountains and 8 seas had appeared. There has never been a single mainland in history that could gather all of the 9 mountains and 8 seas. That was a glory comparable to the Above Heavens sect era, and it even surpassed the Above Heavens sect era. Xia Qin shouted, I don't care about your so-called battle technique. I just want to know why you leaked my divine martial world's battle technique. Wang Fan frowned. I've already said that I didn't leak your battle skills. What good would it do me if I did? That would only expose Guizhu's identity. Lu Yin sneered, wrong. Your goal is to put Guizhu in a desperate situation. What did you say? Wang Fan stared at Lu Yin with a scrutinizing gaze. Bai Wang Yuan, Xia Zhen and even Guizhu all looked over. Lu Yin slowly said, Wang Fan, you really are the one with the deepest concealment and the greatest ambition. You deliberately used Gui Yuan to leak the cold immortal sects and divine martial world's battle techniques to put on a show and force Guizhu into a desperate situation. Your goal was to get Guizhu to approach me and obtain the true death god's inheritance from me. The only reason you were willing to join forces with the cold immortal sect and banish the Lu family was because you wanted to take control of the 5th mainland. You had Guizhu's shadow clone, and Guizhu cultivated the death god's power. That was your confidence. The cold immortal sect's confidence came from Bai Xiener, the Xia family because of their grudges, and the White Dragon clan because they wanted to take control of the 5th mainland. You wanted to use this opportunity to eradicate the Lu family, which was the biggest obstacle to you taking control of the 5th mainland. In the end, you joined forces with Guizhu and used the Wang family and the death god's power to suppress the 5th mainland. Lu Xiaoxian, you're spouting nonsense. Wang Fan was furious. He had been calm in the face of all this, and so what if Guizhu had been exposed? As for revealing his cultivation technique, he hadn't done it, so he wasn't afraid of being wrongly accused. However, Lu Yin's words had given him a perfect excuse to reveal his cultivation technique. In all honesty, even Wang Fan felt that Lu Yin's words were true. He was tempted. It wasn't impossible for Guizhu to snatch Lu Xiaoshuan's death god's inheritance and use the death god's power to take control of the 5th mainland. Since Wang Fan was tempted, it meant that this method wasn't necessarily false. If even Wang Fan thought so, then what about Bai Wang Yuan and Xia Zhen? The way they looked at Wang Fan completely changed. As long as you can seize my death god's inheritance, Guizhu's clone will disappear. It's just a shadow anyway, so you can recreate it. At that time, the Wang family, the death god's inheritance, and even the powers of Ancestor Ku, Ancestor Symbol, and Ancestor Chen will all be yours. What can't you do? Lu Yin continued. Guizhu shouted angrily, Lu Xiaoxian, you're slandering me. How can I seize your power? You attacked me just now in the Eternal Kingdom, Lu Yin retorted. Guizhu was furious. You were the one who attacked me. That was because I sensed that you were going to attack, so I acted first. You're spouting nonsense. Now that you've been exposed, you're angry? Wang Fan shouted, Lu Xiaoxian, all of this is just your guess. I even suspect that you're the one who leaked the cultivation technique. The 5th mainland has the Spectre clan and you're the death god's successor. With that scum Kue Luo, it's not impossible. Lu Yin laughed. You're saying that I've only been to the starry sky of trees a few times, yet I can steal the cultivation techniques of the cold immortal sect and the divine martial heaven and leak them? Wang Fan, are you looking down on them or are you overestimating me? Bai Wang Yuan's gaze shifted between Wang Fan and Lu Yin. At this point he was at a loss. Under normal circumstances, Wang Fan was the most suspicious, and Lu Xiaoshuan's words made sense. However, that was Lu Xiaoxian. The impersonation of Long Qi had turned the White Dragon clan upside down, and the impersonation of Yu Hao had caused even more trouble. Many of the things that Lu Yin had done in the past were inconceivable, but he was still able to do them. This time it might not be impossible for him to be the culprit. If I'm the one who did it, what good will it do me? Lu Yin shouted. That one sentence enlightened by Wang Yuan and the others. Right, if Lu Xiaoxian was the one who did it, what good would it do him? What could he gain by leaking the cultivation techniques of the cold immortal sect in the divine martial heaven? Fame? Fortune? Lu Yin wouldn't be able to get anything either. The only thing that could make him do this was that he knew about the relationship between Guizhou and Wang Fan, so he could use this opportunity to get rid of Guizhou. But did he know? Wang Fan also thought of this, and he stared at Lu Yin. You already knew about the relationship between Guizhou and me? Lu Yin sneered. Of course not. Even Bai Wang Yuan and the others didn't know, so how would I know? Wang Fan couldn't refute this. No matter how powerful Zhou Xian was, he couldn't possibly know about this secret. This was a secret that only Wang Fan knew. Even the Wang family didn't know, let alone outsiders. Lu Yin really didn't know. He only knew that the Wang family was related to Gui Yuan, but how could he know the specifics? Lu Yin wasn't lying. It seems like we'll have to investigate this matter seriously. Don't let anyone leave, Xiaqin said. Wang Fan's expression turned ugly. No one knew about his relationship with Guizhou, so there was no reason to target him. But what if they didn't target him because of this? Why did they frame Guizhou? This was what he couldn't figure out. There were only a few humans who could frame Guizhou, and they were all progenitors. Who could it be? Who had the reason? Wang Fan's gaze swept past by Wang Yuan, Xiaqin, and Lu Yin. Who had the reason? Wu Xian? Impossible. If Lu Yin didn't know about Guizhou's relationship with Lu Yin, then Guizhou should be able to help him control the four sides. The people from Tianping shouldn't be targeting Guizhou, but if it wasn't him, then who could it be? There were only a few people in total. If Lu Yin wanted to investigate the truth behind the leak technique, then he naturally had to go to Gui Yuan. After all, that was where the technique had been leaked. Bai Wang Yuan would rather have Lu Yin go to the astral trees than stay on the fifth mainland. Lu Yin also wanted to go to the astral trees to take a look. Bai Xianer was undergoing her half-progenitor origin tribulation, but nothing had happened. Wang Fan naturally couldn't leave. Now that Guizhou's true body had been exposed, it was impossible for Wang Fan and Bai Wang Yuan to restore their previous relationship. Although they had been suspicious of each other and schemed against each other, Bai Wang Yuan's fear of Wang Fan would increase infinitely, which wasn't a good thing for Wang Fan. On the way to Ghost Abyss, Lu Yin was thinking about how to deal with it in the future. Perhaps the Wang family would be targeted by everyone. With such thoughts in mind, the group arrived at Ghost Abyss. It was Lu Yin's first time here. Of course, he wasn't unfamiliar with this place. When he had merged with the Ghost Abyss half-progenitor's body, he had already gained a clear understanding of Ghost Abyss. However, his impression of Ghost Abyss was completely different. Ghost Abyss had been torn apart by Bai Sheng. Although the death aura still existed, it was much more dispersed. Many corpses of Ghost Abyss disciples were lying on the ground. In the deepest part, Prince Gui Qian, Ghost Abyss half-progenitor, and many other cultivators were kneeling in a row. Bai Sheng was standing not far away. Wang Fan's gaze turned even colder when he saw this scene. Lu Yin stared at Bai Sheng. That's not right. Bai Xianer is undergoing her tribulation. Why is he here instead of guarding her? Why isn't he with Bai Xianer? Lu Yin looked up at the top realm. Bai Xianer's half-progenitor origin tribulation should have caused a huge commotion, so why is it so peaceful? At that moment, Bai Wang Yuan said coldly, Bai Sheng was a little too heavy-handed. Brother Wang, you shouldn't have hidden this from us. Otherwise, things wouldn't have turned out this way. Wang Fan replied, this has nothing to do with you. It was the person who leaked the technique that framed Ghost Abyss. I will get revenge for this. Xiaxin was indifferent. Don't be in such a hurry to remove yourself from the picture. Lu Yin continued, that's right. Even if Ghost Abyss is destroyed, it's your own fault. Wang Fan's gaze turned even colder. His hatred for the person who had leaked the technique had long since reached the heavens. Ghost Abyss half-progenitor was an elder called Gui Jian, and he was the one who had leaked the technique to Lu Yin. When the technique had been leaked, Bai Sheng had immediately charged into Ghost Abyss and taken control of Gui Jian and the others. He hadn't interrogated them and had only asked them a few questions. No one in Ghost Abyss knew who had leaked the technique, and they hadn't even heard anything. When Lu Yin had fused with Gui Jian's body, no one in Ghost Abyss had heard him leak the technique. Otherwise, Gui Jian would have been identified long ago. The person who leaked the technique must have been one of these people, and no one in Ghost Abyss heard the moment the technique was leaked. This level of cultivation. Bai Sheng's gaze swept across the group of Ghost Abyss disciples. Only an emissary at the very least can accomplish this. Master. Crown Prince Zhou Xian saw Guizhou and instinctively wanted to ask for help. Guizhou had already returned to his original appearance, so he couldn't run around with Wang Fan's face. Shut up. Who was it that leaked the cultivation technique? Guizhou barked. Crown Prince Zhou Xian replied, it definitely wasn't this disciple. This disciple doesn't know the techniques of the frozen immortal sect or the divine martial heaven. Thank you. Moving freely must depend on the wind reincarnation's back Schrodinger's paper suitcase Demetia and not bad fatty Zamizens light say what you want. Brother's tip I'll give it to you. Chapter 2488. Xiaxin immediately looked at Gui Jian. There was only one half-ancestor here so he was the most suspicious. Even if Prince Gui Qian and the others had learned the frozen immortal sects and Xinwu Sky's techniques, it would not have been so easy to spread them. Only a half-ancestor could have done so. Gui Jian lowered his head as he was the only half-ancestor here. If Xiaxin could think of this then everyone else could as well. He was the most suspicious. By Wang Yuan, Wang Fan and the others all looked at Gui Jian. Speak, Xiaxin said. Gui Jian slowly raised his head, his aged face filled with fear. As a half-ancestor being stared at by so many progenitors made him feel despair. This subordinate definitely did not leak the technique. Bai Xing walked over. I've caught the person who heard about the technique. Bring him over. Wang Fan's eyes lit up. Lu Yin stealthily approached Gui Jian and then fused with him. After fusing with Gui Jian's body he glanced at Bai Wang Yuan. He only glanced at him once before dissolving the fusion. Xiaxin did not notice this glance, and Bai Wang Yuan was looking at the people who had been brought over. They were the two cultivators from the Ghost Abysses organizations who had been with Wan Wui, so he did not notice. Only one person had noticed and that was Guizhou or Wang Fan. He saw Ghost Realm glance at Bai Wang Yuan, and this glance caused his pupils to contract. The two cultivators were brought over and they easily recognized Gui Jian's voice. Gui Jian was shocked and hurriedly tried to explain himself, but the truth was right before his eyes, and his excuses were useless. Why did you leak my frozen immortal sex technique? Where did you get it from? Wang Fan, what else is there to explain? This person is a half-ancestor from the Ghost Abyss. Bai Wang Yuan barked as he stared at Wang Fan. Wang Fan coldly glared at Bai Wang Yuan. Good move. Bai Wang Yuan raised his brows. What did you say? Wang Fan narrowed his eyes and glared at Bai Wang Yuan. Did you already know about my relationship with Guizhou? Bai Wang Yuan was so angry that he laughed. What a joke. How would I know? Lu Yin said, it seems like Ancestor Wang Fan is anxious. First you said that I knew about it and now you're saying that Ancestor Bai knew about it. What? Will you say that Senior Xiaxin knows about it next? Bai Xing, who was listening from the side, was confused. What nonsense was this? It was clearly someone from the abyss who had leaked the technique. Wang Fan stared at Gui Jian. Who told you to leak the cultivation technique? Speak or I'll make you wish you were dead. Gui Jian looked at Guizhou. Old ancestor, subordinate definitely did not reveal this secret art. Subordinate is innocent. Someone must have controlled subordinate to reveal this secret art. Please investigate this matter, old ancestor. Control. When he said this, Bai Wang Yuan and the rest all looked at Lu Yin. They guessed that Lu Yin definitely had a way to control others. Back then when he was disguised as Yu Hao, he had controlled Long Ku to attack Wang Jing and knocked him out with a slipper. In the Lu family, the undying god had said that Lu Xiaoxian had the power to control others. Many things could be analyzed from the clues. Thus when the word control was uttered, everyone looked at Lu Yin. Lu Yin spread out his hands. I've always been in the above heaven. Who can prove it? Wang Fan shouted. Lu Yin sneered. Just one sentence from this person and I'm suspected? What a joke. Since when have I been wronged by a half-ancestor? When had he ever wrongly accused Lu Yin? All he did was say a few words. On a different level the words spoken and the words heard made sense. Even the explanations were different. Even Bai Xing could not understand why everyone was staring at Wang Fan. Xiaxin spoke up. This person is the one who leaked the technique and we can definitely find the source from him. Now that he's under control, the person who leaked the technique will not be able to escape. She then looked at Wang Fan. Senior, please don't randomly accuse him. Wang Fan's expression changed, but he did not randomly accuse anyone. He had just confirmed that Gui Jian was looking at Bai Wangyuan, and there were only a few people in the universe who could wrongly accuse him. Right now Wang Fan was most suspicious of Bai Wangyuan. I Gui Yuan have many methods. Anyone who dares to wrongly accuse me will not have an easy time. He then stared at Gui Jian. I will definitely pry open his mouth and find the true culprit. Gui Jian was completely at a loss. He looked at Wang Fan and then at Gui Zhu. Gui Zhu had not said a single word, but Wang Fan had said that he was Gui Yuan's and Gui Yuan was his? What had happened? Had the patriarch been suppressed? Bai Xing was puzzled. What's going on? Since when did Gui Yuan become Patriarch Wang Fan's? Bai Wangyuan snorted. This person cannot be handed over to you. You are the greatest suspect. Xiaxia agreed. That's right. This person must be interrogated by us. Wang Fan said, we'll interrogate him together. I won't hand him over to anyone else. Bai Xing looked at Lu Yin. Aren't you going to fight for it? Lu Yin shrugged. It has nothing to do with me, but I have to clarify that I own half of Gui Yuan. Everyone looked at him and Wang Fan frowned. Nonsense. Lu Yin pointed at Gui Zhu. He said that as long as I helped him he would give me half of Gui Yuan. Gui Zhu then spoke up. Although he was a shadow he had an independent personality just like his 9 clones. Lu Xian, not only did you not help me but you even attacked me. I will not rest until you are dead. Lu Yin sneered. You're going to go back on your word just like that? Wang Fan said, any region in the cosmic tree has nothing to do with you. Lu Yin replied, you should take care of yourself first. Your scheme will be exposed soon. You want to steal my death god's inheritance and join forces with the Wang family and Gui Yuan to control the 5th mainland? Dream on. Wang Fan clenched his fists. Lu Yin's reasoning made it difficult for him to defend himself. If not for this reasoning he would not have been so passive. At that moment the void rippled. Lu Yin looked in a certain direction where a white-robed figure walked out. It was Bai Xian. However, compared to the Bai Xian of the past she now seemed even more sacred. There was also an indescribable feeling about her that was oppressive and imposing. It was as if there was a pair of eyes behind her that were looking down on her. There was clearly no one behind her. How about you leave this matter to me? Bai Xian's appearance illuminated Gui Yuan. Wang Fan looked at the current Bai Xian with a strange expression. Where did you go? Bai Xian smiled. I was lucky. I broke through to half-ancestor there. Lu Yin sized her up. She had broken through to half-ancestor so quickly? Where was that place? The current Bai Xian was indeed different from before. Seniors, Xian guarantees that I will definitely investigate this matter thoroughly, Bai Xian said. Her gaze swept across everyone including Lu Yin. She smiled at him. What do you think, brother Zhou Xian? Lu Yin replied, it has nothing to do with me. That's your problem, but I definitely want half of Gui Yuan. Bai Xian laughed. Do you want this land or the death energy? Lu Yin asked. Yin replied, I want both. Bai Xian looked at Wang Fan. Senior, this is between you and him. Wang Fan coldly replied, he's dreaming if he wants Gui Yuan. Then let Xian investigate this matter. Xian believes that this matter was not done by Senior, Bai Xian said. Wang Fan wasn't thinking about himself right now, and he wasn't afraid of being wrongly accused. With his strength, so what if others wrongly accused him? He was thinking about Bai Wangyuan, as the gaze from the ghost realm had left a deep impression on him. If Bai Wangyuan was behind this, what was he planning to do? He was willing to expose his family's techniques just to accuse Lu Yin. Was it just to expose his relationship with Gui Zhu? If Bai Wangyuan didn't know about his relationship with Gui Zhu, then his actions would be even stranger. Wang Fan fell into deep thought. Bai Xian said, this matter is very complicated and it might involve the everlasting race. Don't forget that the everlasting race still exists in this region. They've been developing here for many years and no one knows how many redbacks and spies they have. The everlasting race might have grasped the techniques of our frigid immortal sect in Shenwu Plain. You suspect that the everlasting race is behind this? Xiaqin asked. Bai Xian nodded. Yes. Wang Fan coldly glanced at Bai Wangyuan and Bai Xian. He still suspected that Bai Wangyuan was behind this. Lu Yin didn't say anything. The goal of this matter was to expose the relationship between Gui Zhu and the Wang family, and it would be best to use this opportunity to deal a blow to Wang Fan. Now that his goal had been achieved, there was no need for him to do anything else. Bai Xianer said, "It will take time to investigate this matter. Before that, some guests have arrived." Bai Wang Yuan was shocked. "Guests from the main space?" Bai Xianer smiled. "They should be here soon." "What are they here for?" Wang Fan asked. Bai Xianer replied, "To discuss the war against the everlasting race." In the fifth mainland's blazing mist flow zone, a spacecraft was heading towards the astral river. This was a very ordinary spacecraft that could carry more than 1,000 people. Its journey was between the outer verse and the inner verse. While the spacecraft was traveling, a spatial tear suddenly appeared in front of it. The spacecraft's alarm sounded and the captain was shocked. "Quick, turn around. Turn around." Unfortunately, the spatial tear had appeared too close to the spacecraft. Even though the bow of the ship turned around, the hull and stern of the ship were still torn apart by the spatial tear. Everyone inside disappeared without a trace, and only the bow of the ship was left floating in outer space. 3 figures walked out of the spatial tear. The one in the lead was an old man who Lu Yin had met once before. He was the Yuan sage from the main space who had taken Madman Lu away. Behind him were 2 youths. One of them was wearing a blue and white coat that wasn't made of cloth. Instead, it was made of a strange metal that reflected light. There was a crystal ball in his chest, and he wore a spectacle frame on his right eye that was the same as the one used to measure his power level. It was dark green in color, and his entire body seemed to be encased in metal. He was handsome, and his hair was long and draped over his shoulders. His gaze was frivolous, and he looked around with an air of superiority. The other person was wearing a light golden robe and had his hands behind his back. There was a faint smile on his face, and he exuded an air of nobility. There was nothing special about this person, but he stood tall in outer space like an illusion. Although he wasn't as handsome as the other person, he was more ethereal and difficult to see through. It seems like a spacecraft was torn apart. It doesn't matter. This kind of thing is very common. Is this the Genesis space? The legendary space where the above heaven sect once existed? It's very ordinary. The Genesis space no longer exists. This is just a ruin. Chapter 2489. The Yuan sage's gaze swept across the area and finally settled on the north. "Let's go." He then brought the 2 of them across the astral river and into the outer verse. They then arrived outside the heavenly sect at the border with Frostwave Weave North Castle Weave. Here the 3 of them saw the heavenly sect and the ancestral tortoise beside it. "Is that the mount you were talking about, senior?" one of the youths asked. The Yuan sage replied, "No, how can a tortoise be given to a grand empyrean?" "That's true. Is this the heavenly sect in the Genesis space? There doesn't even seem to be a decent powerhouse. It's very weak. The entire universe is weak." The Yuan sage looked at the heavenly sect in the distance. "Let's choose this place. Since the Lu family has shown up, they should bear the consequences." He then took out a set of coordinates and continued, "At the same time, this is a punishment for our disrespect." He then used the coordinates to tear through the void. On the other side of the void were pairs of scarlet vertical eyes. At that moment, Lu Yin, who was far away in the astral tree realm, suddenly felt his heart palpitate. He didn't know where this stifling feeling was coming from, but there was definitely a problem. "Brother Zhou Xian, I hope you can be more polite when the people from the main space arrive. After all, they helped us a lot in the war against the Eternals. We have to share their burden as well." Bai Xianer's voice rang out in Lu Yin's ears. Lu Yin didn't care about her. His expression was solemn, and his eyes flickered as the palpitating feeling grew stronger. Something wasn't right. What was wrong? "Lu Xiaoxian, this is related to the bigger picture." Bai Wang Yuan was speaking when Lu Yin's wireless goo suddenly vibrated. He hurriedly picked it up and saw that it was Lu Bujing. "The Eternals have appeared. It's a progenitor corpse king." Lu Bujing sent a message before hanging up. Lu Yin was shocked and immediately returned to the 5th mainland. He didn't even have time to say a word. Something had happened in the heavenly sect. Why had the Eternals appeared in the heavenly sect? Were they targeting him? He had always thought that the Eternals would appear in the Starfall Sea or on the other side of the battlefield. Why had they appeared in the 5th mainland? After the Eternals had been defeated, he had communicated with Wuxia. Wuxia was puzzled as to why the Eternal's undead kings had not appeared directly on the fifth mainland. Instead they had attacked from behind. Wuxia could not provide an answer. Lu Yin had always been cautious, and the reason why he had kept rolling his die was because he hoped that he would be able to fuse into the body of an eternal ancestor and learn the truth. However, before he could learn the truth, the celestial sect was already in trouble. Quick, 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 quick. On the fifth continent the above heaven sect was shaken. Blood dyed the starry skies. Lu Bujing crashed to the ground. His entire body was covered in wounds. Above his head, a pair of scarlet vertical eyes stared over. What followed was a vertical tear in the void, almost piercing through the entire above heaven sect. Behind the Ancestor Realm Corpse King were endless scarlet vertical eyes. The cultivators in Heaven's Sky sect were all shocked. Why are there so many monsters? Enemy attack, enemy attack. At the critical moment, the Blood Ancestor attacked the Ancestor Realm Corpse King. Contact the Pathmaster. The Ancestor Realm Corpse King's hair was disheveled, and it looked like an evil spirit. Its eyes were scarlet, and its body suddenly vanished as it pierced through the world and punched at the Blood Ancestor. The Blood Ancestor raised a hand and used his remaining progenitor power to block, but the punch pierced through his chest and he coughed up blood. A majestic spiritual force swept out. Let this old man leap through the Dragon's Gate. The Ancestor Realm Corpse King looked up. At some point in time it had appeared around him. Fish swam against the waterfall, and the Ancestor Realm Corpse King seemed to have transformed into a fish that needed to leap through the Dragon's Gate according to the rules. At the top of the waterfall, Kuei Luo gritted his teeth. Where did this Ancestor Realm Corpse King come from? Damn it. The Ancestor Realm Corpse King raised its hand and opened its palm. With a casual wave, it cut the void in two, not only including the Dragon's Gate realm, but also the above heaven sky sect and the entire Frostwave weave. The outerverse outer space was like a blank sheet of paper to this Ancestor Realm Corpse King. Kuei Luo retreated. I can't stop it. 3 young ancestral chi from Lu Bujing's body surged out. He wanted to use fate to probe for life. The second Night King and the others stood in place, unable to move. They could only watch as the Ancestor Realm Corpse King wreaked havoc in the above heaven sky sect. In a corner, Wu Junshi was shocked. The Eternals were eternal sovereigns. How could such a monster have suddenly appeared? In outer space, the ancestral turtle had completely retracted its head, not daring to show its face. On the ancestral turtle's back, the Mavis God Tree swayed as one corpse king after another emerged from the void. They charged towards the ancestral turtle, the above heaven sky sect and earth. The Ancestor Realm Corpse King crushed the above heaven sky sect's mountain gate with 1 foot. It suddenly turned around and saw Elder Chan walking out of the void with a serious expression. Your opponent is me. Everything had happened too quickly. When Lu Yin returned to the fifth mainland and saw the above heaven sky sect, he saw Elder Chan standing tall in outer space. He also saw the shattered mountain gate and the Eternal's corpses floating in the void. Senior. Lu Yin hurried forward. Elder Chan looked to the east. Those Eternals came from there. There used to be a void crack there, but it's gone now. Lu Yin scanned the above heaven sky sect with his domain and sighed in relief. Fortunately, there hadn't been many casualties. It had only been a short time since he had learned of the Eternal's appearance, and since Elder Chan had arrived, he should be able to control the situation. Suddenly, Lu Yin's expression changed and he descended to the mountain gate. Elder Chan lowered his head and sighed. Beside the above heaven sky sect's mountain gate, the Blood Ancestor coughed as his body had been pierced through. The Ancestor Realm Corpse King's power had destroyed his vitality, making it difficult for him to move. He had already lost his progenitor's power, and his entire body had turned gray. Lu Bujingka, the second Night King, and the others were all around him. Lu Yin landed in front of the Blood Ancestor. Here, how are you? The Blood Ancestor waved a hand. I'm finally free. Lu Yin's gaze was filled with sorrow. The Blood Ancestor laughed. Don't look at me like that. I'm not dead, I've just become an ordinary person. I'll retire here. Don't chase me away, Pathmaster. Master, Z called out softly, her eyes red. Lu Yin asked, was it the Ancestor Realm Corpse King? Lu Bujing spoke up from the side. If Senior Blood Ancestor hadn't rushed forward, I would have died. Senior blocked the attack for me. The blood ancestor coughed a few times. Don't make me sound so noble. I just happened to be here and I had to act when I encountered the Ancestor Realm Corpse King. It has nothing to do with you. Lu Yin took a deep breath. Senior, rest assured and recuperate here. If there's a chance in the future, I'll help you recover. There's no need. One doesn't have to become an ancestor in one's lifetime. The responsibility is too great. Of course you're different. You already have a great responsibility to bear. Lu Yin didn't say much to the blood ancestor as he had to deal with the aftermath. Furthermore, the appearance of the Eternals was too strange. Since they had appeared, why had they retreated so quickly? The appearance of the Eternals this time is very unusual. He had come to North Castle Weave with Lu Yin to investigate the spatial tear. He spoke in a heavy tone. I didn't even exchange blows with the Ancestor Realm Corpse King. When he discovered that I was here, he immediately retreated. It seems like he doesn't want to get involved with us. Lu Yin was puzzled. Since they appeared and then retreated, there's nothing strange about the surroundings. Actually, it feels more like they were released by someone, Elder Chan said. Lu Yin's eyes trembled as he activated the Sirius art and stepped onto the stars. In an instant, the entire fifth mainland seemed to revolve around him. He saw many planets and territories and his gaze suddenly fixed in one direction. He had found it, Starburst. In the distance, Yuan Xing looked up and led the two youths away from the spot where they had been standing. The star exploded and a terrifying force swept out in all directions, causing the void to boil. What a radical method. Yuan Xing raised his head. The Lu family is still so rude to attack a guest like this. With that, he walked towards the Above the Sky sect. Lu Yin deactivated the Sirius art and headed towards the Above the Sky sect with Elder Chan. Finally, they met in outer space outside the Above the Sky sect. Yuan Xing. Lu Yin's expression darkened. Bai Xian'er had said that someone from the main space would come, but he hadn't expected that person to appear here. Yuan Xing looked at Lu Yin calmly. Child of the Lu family, you're too rude. Why are you here? Is the appearance of the Eternals related to you? Lu Yin asked. Yuan Xing replied indifferently. Since you've established the Above the Sky sect, why do you care about a mere progenitor of the Eternals? If they can't even stop a progenitor corpse king, then the Above the Sky sect should be demolished. Golden light bloomed above Lu Yin's head as the God Sealing Catalog appeared. Behind him, the caged Wurm returned to his original form and roared, "Since you admit it, then die." He was about to attack. Elder Chan didn't hesitate either. 3 ancestral chi revolved around him as he transformed into Shui Wuqing and attacked Yuan Xing. Yuan Xing didn't move. In front of him, Bai Wang Yuan and Wang Fan walked out, followed by Bai Xian'er, Xia Zhen and Gui Zhu. Lu Xiaoxian, are you trying to bring disaster upon yourself by attacking? Lu Yin frowned. If it was just Yuan Xing alone, then he could join forces with Elder Chan. This person wouldn't even be able to tear through space and escape. However, now that Bai Wang Yuan and the others were here, things would become troublesome. Senior, are you all right? Bai Xian'er asked Yuan Xing. Yuan Xing waved his hand. I'm fine, but... He looked past Bai Xian'er and the others and met Lu Yin's eyes. The Lu family is too rude. Bai Xian'er looked at Lu Yin. Brother Lu, why did you attack Senior Yuan Xing? Elder Chan replied. He opened a path to the Eternals beside our Above Heaven sect and caused us to suffer heavy losses. Didn't you see that? Bai Wang Yuan looked at Yuan Xing in surprise. Even Bai Xian'er, Xia Zhen and Wang Fan were surprised. They hadn't expected Yuan Xing to do such a thing. Lu Yin had seen it too. He had thought that the 4-way scales had cooperated with Yuan Xing, but now it seemed like that wasn't the case. Yuan Xing looked indifferent. The Above Heaven sect represents the past glory of the origin space. It's not easy to bear the weight of these 3 words. Lu Xiaoxian, if you want to bear the weight, then do you think it's so easy to bear the weight of the Above Heaven sect? Do you think it's so easy to call yourself a path master? This is a matter of our space-time. What does it have to do with you? It's not your place to talk nonsense, Lu Yin retorted coldly. Yuan Xing laughed and said arrogantly, I can't stand it. 3 words. Only 3 words. This was the only reason why he had almost destroyed the Above Heaven sect when he had just connected to the Eternals. Chapter 2490. These 3 words had caused the Above Heaven sect to collapse, the blood ancestor to become an ordinary person and many people to die. When these 3 words were spoken, Yuan Xing's expression remained calm and proud. The two youths behind him were the same, looking at Lu Yin with teasing gazes. They weren't progenitors, but they weren't afraid of a progenitor at all. They looked at this spacetime with a sense of superiority. Lu Yin suddenly calmed down. These 3 words were the best explanation he could come up with. There was no need for any more nonsense, and there was no need for so many pompous words. There were only 3 words, and that was it. Senior, you must be here to discuss how to deal with the Eternals. Please come to my frigid immortal sect. We will gather everyone to discuss this. Xianxia said as she stood between Yuan Xing and Lu Yin, blocking his line of sight. Yuan Xing looked at Xianxia. There's no need. Those who are qualified to discuss the war are all here. Only progenitors are qualified to listen. He glanced at Wang Yuan, Wang Fan and the others and asked curiously, "Where's Xiaxia?" Xiaqin replied, "He's missing." Yuan Xing looked at Xiaqin. "Why is he missing?" Xiaqin looked at Lu Yin. Yuan Xing followed her gaze and saw Lu Yin again. Lu Yin said, "I banished him to a parallel spacetime." Yuan Xing looked at him deeply. "Then you'll be responsible for finding him." Lu Yin clasped his hands behind his back. "Who do you think you are? How dare you ask me to do something? If it weren't for your dogs, you wouldn't have been able to return today." "Wu Xiaoxian, how dare you?" Wang Yuan rebuked. This was the first time they had been scolded like this. Xianxia's face also darkened. "Brother Lu, there's no point in arguing." Lu Yin replied, "Then get out of my way. Let's see if I'm arguing." Yuan Xing shook his head and smiled nonchalantly. "You can kill me, but not here. Son of the Lu family, since you don't want to waste your breath, come with me to the main space. I will give you a chance to have a fair fight there. Senior, let me fight him first." "There's no need for you to do anything." The young man in golden robes behind Yuan Xing spoke up for the first time. Lu Yin raised a hand and pointed at the youth in the pale golden robes. "I'll kill you in one move." The young man's expression changed. His gaze turned cold as he sneered. "How long has it been since someone dared to be so arrogant in front of me? The people of the Lu family are indeed arrogant. Very well, today." Yuan Xing raised his hand and waved. The young man in the faint golden robe was unwilling to give up. "Senior, let me go. I'll teach this son of the Lu clan a lesson for you." Yuan Xing looked at Lu Yin and said, "This spacetime is not suitable for us to take action. Child of the Lu family Xiaxia, you must find him. Otherwise, what awaits you will be even more miserable than when the Lu family was exiled." The great heavenly venerate had already shown mercy by exiling the Lu family and giving them a chance to survive. However, you have repeatedly spoken rudely, so your fate will be even worse than the entire Lu families. "The Grand Empyrean is the ruler of your spacetime?" Elder Chan asked. Yuan Sage replied. "He is the master of all of us. If you are fated to meet the great heavenly venerate one day, you must remember to kneel before him. Otherwise, the great heavenly venerate's anger is not something you can bear." These words were not only meant for Elder Chan's ears, but also for everyone present. Wang Yuan and Wang Fan looked at each other calmly. It was obvious that this was not the first time they had heard such words. Xiaqin raised her brows. "Kneel before him?" Yuan Xing looked at her. "As a progenitor, it is indeed unacceptable for you to kneel before him. However, the moment you see the great heavenly venerate, you will be able to sense that he is a ruler who can make all living beings kneel before him. Regardless of whether it is his realm or his merit, the great heavenly venerate is able to withstand the worship of everyone. If not for the great heavenly venerate, the human race would have been transformed by the Eternals and turned into monsters. Progenitors could not do it and died at the hands of the Eternals. The great heavenly venerate shouldered the burden of everything. Is that not enough to make you kneel before him?" Xiaqin was about to retort when Xianxia spoke up. "Senior, are you also here on the orders of the great heavenly venerate?" Yuan Xing nodded. "Back then, when you accidentally trapped the undying deity, the 7 sky gods came to your rescue. Even the sole true god took action. That was not a power that you could resist. The great heavenly venerate held back the sole true god while the 6 direction guild's battlefield dragged the 7 sky gods away. That was why your spacetime was able to expel the Eternals. Now that the pressure on the 6 direction guild's battlefield has increased, the forces that the Eternals originally placed in your spacetime have appeared in other battlefields." Lu Yin listened calmly. There was no point in saying anything now. He just wanted to understand the Sixth Direction Guild, the main space, and the Great Heavenly Venerate. Yuan Xing had said a lot, but his ultimate goal was to open up a path through the Eternals battlefield in this space-time and share some of the pressure on the Sixth Direction Guild. Bai Wang Yuan and the others were naturally unwilling. After all, they had finally managed to expel the Eternals, so why should they take the initiative to start a war? However, Yuan Xing had brought the Great Heavenly Venerate's will, so they could not refuse. You guys won't refuse, right? Yuan Xing looked at Bai Wang Yuan and the others. Bai Wang Yuan was put in a difficult position. Madman Lu went to the main space. Liu was killed because he was suspected of colluding with the Eternals, and Xianxia was exiled. The strength of our space-time has decreased greatly. Moreover, the sole true God attacked the Mother Tree and caused the infinite power array to collapse. If we face the Eternals now, we might not be able to hold on. Yuan Xing was dissatisfied. Although your space-time has weakened greatly, there are still many progenitors. Otherwise, the Great Heavenly Venerate would not have thought of you guys. Since I've brought this up, I'm not asking you guys to die. Most of the Eternals' forces are restrained by the Sixth Direction Guild. You guys only need to deal with a small portion of their forces. Lu Yin and Elder Chan exchanged glances. This situation reminded them of the time when they were dealing with the undying deity. Yuan Xing had taken the initiative to open up the Starfall Sea to share the burden of the Eternals' forces. If that was the case, it would not be wrong to consider the overall situation of the human race. But was this really what the Sixth Direction Guild was thinking? Lu Yin stared at Yuan Xing. He saw the arrogance in Yuan Xing's eyes as he spoke, and the hostility in the eyes of the two youths behind him. It was not as simple as it seemed. With the strength of their space-time, how could they not be qualified to join the Sixth Direction Guild? The three monarch spacetimes were all part of the Sixth Direction Guild, and their spacetime definitely surpassed the three monarch spacetimes. Even so, they were still not part of the Sixth Direction Guild and were excluded. This meant that the Sixth Direction Guild, led by the main space, had other ideas about the origin space. If they did as the main space wanted, they would be easily passive. Once the Sixth Direction Guild threw most of the Eternals' forces here, they would have no way to ask for help. If Lu Yin could think of this, Bai Wang Yuan and the others could naturally think of it as well. No one wanted to court death. Senior Yuan Xing, there are many ways to share the burden of the Sixth Direction Guild. Can you give us some time to think about it? Don't worry, we will definitely take action. No one can stay out of the fight against the Eternals, Bai Xianer said respectfully. Yuan Xing's expression softened when he heard her words. It's good that you know. No one can stay out of the fight. We helped you share the burden in the past and did not ask for any resources. As humans, we must be grateful. He then looked at Lu Yin. Lu family's son finds Xianxia. Xianxia greets the Grand Heavenly Venerate, and the Grand Heavenly Venerate appreciates him. If the Grand Heavenly Venerate finds out that you banished Xianxia, he can easily kill you. Don't anger the Grand Heavenly Venerate. He then tore through the void and looked back before leaving. The Grand Heavenly Venerate's tea party is approaching. If you can offer up that mount, it might make up for the Lu family's sins. Lu Yin remained calm as if he had not heard anything that Yuan Xing had said. Even the last sentence remained calm, so calm that it was frightening. Only those who understood him knew that the more Lu Yin was like this, the more he was like this, the more terrifying he was. Seeing that Yuan Xing was about to leave, Lu Yin said, "Let's play a game." Everyone was at a loss. A game? Yuan Xing was amused. What game? Lu Yin replied, the game's name is Cat and Mouse. His eyes flashed with endless coldness. You don't dare to fight me to the death here. These fellows will protect you. You can hide, but no matter where you hide, I will catch you. Then. He then pointed at the above heaven sect in the direction of the blood ancestor. When I catch you, you will kneel there. Yuan Xing looked at Lu Yin and suddenly burst into laughter as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. The two youths behind him also laughed and looked at Lu Yin mockingly. Alright, I'll play this game with you and show you who's the cat and who's the mouse. He then turned around and left. The others did not interrupt and did not say anything about this matter even after Yuan Xing had left. The fate of the above heaven sect and the purpose of Yuan Xing's visit had made them feel uneasy. As for the game that Lu Yin had mentioned, none of them felt that it was a joke. Yuan Xing did not understand this person at all, and they had no obligation to remind him. This was their own business. Bai Wangyuan retracted his gaze from Lu Yin. The 6 parties will let us lead the Eternals into the war. If they plot against us and throw most of the Eternals into our spacetime, the situation will not be any better than before. Xiaqin asked, why should we listen to them? Bai Wangyuan frowned. There were not many people in this spacetime who truly understood the main space, including the progenitors. Only those who understood the main space would know how terrifying it was. So what if they were from the 9 mountains and 8 seas? The main space had power comparable to the above heaven sect, and the great heavenly venerate was an existence comparable to a progenitor. A single finger from the great heavenly venerate was enough to destroy all of them. It was fine if they did not come into contact with the main space, but once they came into contact with it, they would no longer be able to control themselves. Furthermore, they had not only come into contact with the main space, but they had also used the main space to deal with the Lu family. They could no longer be separated from the main space. This might not be the great heavenly venerate's intention, Wang Fan suddenly said. Bai Wangyuan's eyes flashed. Are you saying that this is Yuan Xing's own intention? Wang Fan replied, the great heavenly venerate is detached from worldly matters. Aside from dealing with the only true God, his other hobbies are tea tasting. He rarely interferes with the overall war situation. Furthermore, if this is the great heavenly venerate's intention, why would Yuan Xing test the above heaven sect? He then looked at Lu Yin. You guys don't really believe Yuan Xing's words, do you? He's testing the above heaven sect just because he doesn't like it? Lu Yin looked at him. Then why? Wang Fan shook his head. I don't know, but my guess is that he might be testing the power of our spacetime and plotting something. Elder Chan said, there's one thing that I find strange. If Yuan Xing can open a path to the Eternals from the above heaven sect, why would the Eternals attack the battlefield on the other side? Why not just open a path in the starry sky? Bai Qi asked. Zhou Xian can open a passage to the Eternal Kingdom's parallel spacetime and exist for a long time? Lu Yin understood. Opening a passage to a parallel spacetime was very short and could not allow an endless stream of Eternals to come over. The Eternals have their own way of making corpse kings appear endlessly, but those things are very fragile. Progenitors can destroy them, but once they enter they will be easily destroyed. Those things are not infinite, or else the corpse god would not have left the battlefield of the sovereign realm to protect them. Also, spacetime coordinates are not that easy to determine, especially the coordinates of our spacetime, Bai Qi explained. Wang Fan continued, although we haven't confirmed it, our guess is that the larger the spacetime, the more difficult it is to determine the coordinates. It's easy to determine the coordinates of a small spacetime like the Eternal Kingdom, but it's not that easy to determine the coordinates of our spacetime, even for the Eternals. Otherwise, our spacetime would have been riddled with holes by the coordinates. The Hexagon Society cannot remain a secret forever. Even the Hexagon Society might not have the coordinates of our spacetime. Chapter 2491. Bai Sienna replied, Yuan Sage must have opened up a passageway to a certain battlefield and attracted the progenitor realm corpse monarch. Therefore, the progenitor realm corpse monarch didn't stay here for long and left the moment Elder Chan appeared. He had his own battlefield. Lu Yin and Old Chan heaved a sigh of relief when they heard this. They were afraid that a Yuan sage could contact the everlasting race at any time, which was the biggest threat to them. Lu Xiaoxian brings Xiaxinji back, Bai Wangyuan suddenly said as he stared at Lu Yin. Yuan Xing wasn't spouting nonsense. Xiaxinji has left an impression on the Grand Empyrean. If the Grand Empyrean decides to act because of this, then no one will be able to protect you. Isn't that what you want to see? Lu Yin sneered. Bai Wangyuan coldly said, we don't wish to attract a great Empyrean. Regardless of whether Yuan Sage came here on the great heavenly venerate's orders or not, since he is here, he at least represents the intentions of the Sixth Direction Guild. The war with the eternal race is approaching. If the great ancestor doesn't return, we will lose a portion of our strength. Once we are defeated by the eternal race, you know what will happen to the human race. Furthermore, exiling the great ancestor won't be enough to avenge him. Lu Yin looked at her. Were you the one who lured the Yuan Sage here? Your half-ancestor origin tribulation should be in the main space, right? Bai Sienna didn't reply. Not long after, they left the fifth continent. A few days later, the Wang family's meditative forgetting technique was made public. Lu Yin found out that this was Wang Fan's handiwork. No one would be able to find out the truth about Gui Yuan leaking his secret art. Wang Fan would never admit it and he couldn't find a scapegoat. After all, Bai Wang Yuan and the others weren't stupid, and Gui Zhu's identity had been exposed. The only thing Wang Fan could do was to announce the sit-and-forget art to appease the anger of the cold immortal sect in the divine martial heaven. If he had a choice, he wouldn't want to announce the meditative forgetting art. However, he knew that the meditative forgetting art couldn't be hidden from others. Instead of waiting for the frigid immortal sect to announce it, it would be better for the Wang clan to announce it themselves. As soon as the four-way scales came out, it replaced the Corpse King transformation. Those who wanted to rely on martial arts to embark on the path of revenge, or those who wanted to ascend to the heavens in a single bound, decisively gave up on the Corpse King transformation. They cultivated the divine martial qi, the art of forgetting, and the wind god battle technique of the cold immortal sect, causing the undying deity's plot to vanish. Lu Yin went to Shenwu continent once again and asked if it was possible for him to infiltrate the space-time continuum of the three sovereigns. The answer he received was the same as before. He wanted to enter the Three Monarchs universe and make use of the Three Monarchs universe as a springboard to contact the Sixth Direction faction. If one didn't understand the Sixth Direction Society, they would always be in a passive position. Even if he unified the Fifth Mainland and settled the four sides of the scale, it would still be meaningless against the existence of the main space. The attitude of Bai Wang Yuan and the Yuan sages had already explained everything. Fortunately, he had the time. He had cultivated for dozens of years on the Fifth Mainland to reach his current level. He didn't believe that he wouldn't be able to survive in the Sixth Mainland. Right now, the only opportunity to make contact with the Sixth Direction Society was the Shenwu continent. Half a month later, the monkey suddenly came looking for Lu Yin and told him that he had performed a meritorious deed. Lu Yin didn't understand why this fellow had stayed in the Above the Sky sect for so long. It's because of my contributions to the Above Heaven sect. Seventh brother, this little marquis noticed that during this period of time, there have been people sneaking around and asking if there are any outsiders in the Above Heaven sect. At that time, this little marquis felt that something was wrong, so he secretly followed them. Guess what? There really is a problem. That guy is looking for information about Wu Junshi. The monkey was very pleased with himself and explained the entire process in detail. Lu Yin was curious. Asking about Wu Junshi? Bring along here. Soon, a woman was brought in front of Lu Yin. She had a petite figure and looked very weak. When she saw Lu Yin, she hurriedly knelt on the ground and trembled. Greetings, Pathmaster. Lu Yin looked at the monkey. The monkey said, Seventh brother, don't be fooled by her. This woman has wireless goo and void wanderer. Lu Yin looked at the woman again. Tell me. Since I brought you here, there's no need for any nonsense. Perhaps I can just kill you. A nobody like you won't be able to affect me in the slightest. The woman trembled and her face went pale. Her fear was real. I was ordered to investigate the Above Heaven sect to see if there are any suspicious outsiders. What do you mean by outsiders? Someone who doesn't belong to this space-time. Lu Yin's gaze turned cold. Who told you to investigate? The frigid immortal sect, the woman replied. The monkey barked. Do you think our seventh brother is stupid? If you say it so quickly, it must be fake. Tell me who sent you here. The woman hurriedly replied, I'm telling the truth and I don't dare to deceive you. The frigid immortal sect sent me here. I was recruited to serve in the Above Heaven sect a few years ago, and I was appointed by the frigid immortal sect. I don't dare lie to you. You're still quibbling. Men come. The monkey shouted. Outside the main hall, the second Night King was speechless. Should he go or not? This damned monkey was threatening him with his master's power. Why should he listen to him? But if he didn't go, what would he do if the Pathmaster blamed him? The monkey continued to shout. Lu Yin waved his hand and looked at the woman. When did you receive this mission? She replied, half a month ago. Lu Yin waved his hand and had someone bring the woman out. Seventh brother, are we just going to let her go like this? The monkey was unwilling. Lu Yin was amused. Then what do you want to do? Interrogate her and find out everything about her ancestors. Even find out about her ancestor wetting the bed, the monkey said sternly. Lu Yin said, that's enough. What can a nobody do? I know why she's here to investigate Wu Junshi. He then let the monkey leave. The monkey felt that it was a pity. He had worked so hard to accomplish something, but it had ended so hastily. Lu Yin looked outside. He had been too careless. Half a month ago, Bai Wangyuan and the others had mentioned the Six Direction Society many times, but he had not been surprised or asked about it. They must have guessed that he had long since known about the Six Direction Society, which was why they had sent this woman to investigate. It would be fine if they found out, but it did not matter if they did not, as they had not held out much hope in the first place. Ever since the Above Heaven sect had been established and connected to the Cosmic Tree realm, many people from the Four Direction Scales had snuck in. Lu Yin knew about this, but he had never investigated it, just like how he had people from the Four Direction Scales as well. Now he was thinking about how to get in touch with the Six Direction Society. Could he really go to the Three Sovereign Spacetime Continuum through Shenwu Continent? A few more days passed. On this day, Lu Yin was lost in thought as he looked at Zhao Ran's newly researched tea. Path Master, Zijing requests an audience, the second Night King reported. Bring her here, Lu Yin said. Zijing followed the second Night King to Lu Yin. Greetings, Path Master. Lu Yin gestured for her to sit. The scenery here is pretty good. Zijing nodded. It's a pity that it's been destroyed. Lu Yin asked, what business do you have with me? At that moment, Zhao Ran's tea arrived and Zijing naturally took a sip. Her eyes lit up. Delicious. Thank you. She was pleasantly surprised. Zijing smiled and set down the teacup. She looked at Lu Yin. Does Path Master still remember your promise to me? Lu Yin grunted. Of course. As long as you don't betray humanity, I'll protect you. Zijing's expression was solemn. Please fulfill your promise, Path Master. Lu Yin swirled his teacup. He remembered that Zijing had asked for this promise as a reward for providing him with the battlefield navigation system. She had said that some things could wait until after the war, but he had forgotten about it ever since. Path Master, have you heard of transcendence? Zijing opened her mouth and said three words that shocked Lu Yin. Transcendence? Lu Yin stared at Zijing. Of course he had heard of this name before. Transcendence was one of the Six Direction organizations, just like the Three Sovereigns universe. Seems like Path Master knows. Zijing wasn't surprised. Lu Yin set down his teacup. I don't know if the transcendence you speak of is the same as what I know. Zijing asked. Then what about the Six Direction organizations? Lu Yin nodded and smiled. Was everything destined by the heavens? Back when he had been short on money, the Four Direction Scales had sent him the Heavenly Realm Treasury. Now that he wanted to make contact with the Six Direction organizations, the opportunity had come. Speak. Since you've come to find me, does that mean you're in trouble? Is it related to transcendence? Lu Yin asked. Zijing was helpless. I've been located. Through Zijing, Lu Yin gradually understood transcendence. Transcendence was one of the Six Direction organizations and a very powerful parallel universe. Its development was completely different from that of the Fifth Mainland, and it leaned more towards the technocracy. However, the technocracy could not compare to it. The technocracy was just a backup plan left behind by the Hui ancestor to deal with the endless corpse kings of the Eternals, but transcendence was one of the main forces against the Eternals. Zijing unveiled Transcendence's mysterious yet resplendent veil to Lu Yin. Transcendence's cultivation civilization is very low, and it can even be considered a cultivation desert. However, they have developed cultivation techniques that, as the name implies, use cultivation to drive technology. You can also see it as the cultivation world's technology. There are two cultivation techniques that have been researched to the extreme in Transcendence. With these two techniques, Transcendence has become one of the Six Direction organizations that are on par with the other 5 parallel universes. They are definitely not the weakest of the Six Direction organizations. One of these techniques is called Energy Source, and it can turn all material and non-material energy it comes into contact with into primal energy that can be supplied to the user. The other technique is called the Feeding Technique. Zijing paused and looked at Lu Yin. The Path Master is a lock-breaker, so he knows a lot about source boxes. The Feeding Technique is a lock-breaking technique that cultivators use to unlock a source box. It's purer than lock-breaking as it directly extracts all of the material within a source box to create a countersupply of energy. Lu Yin thought that he had misheard. What did you say? Extract? What do you mean? This was the first time that he had heard someone describe source boxes as food. Zijing explained, the universe is a grand existence, but parallel universes may not necessarily be the same. Some parallel universes are like what the Pathmaster has seen, which is just a small space. Some parallel universes are infinitely large, such as our fifth mainland. Pathmaster, if it's just a small space with our abilities, can we analyze all of the material within that space? Lu Yin replied, of course. To hyperspace, their spacetime is a space that has already been completely analyzed. Source boxes that are formed in their spacetime can't possibly exceed the limits of spacetime itself. They can directly extract all matter and use it to create the attack power that they need, Zijing replied. Chapter 2492. Lu Yin's expression turned solemn. How big is hyperspace? Zijing took a deep breath. Very big. It's not much smaller than the fifth mainland and the starry sky tree. Lu Yin was incredulous. They can analyze everything in such a large space? Zijing replied, that's why hyperspace can remain one of the 6 direction associations even though it's a cultivation desert. I escaped from hyperspace to the fifth mainland by chance. After coming here I thought that I would never be discovered by hyperspace, but as I learned more about the fifth mainland I realized. Zijing was helpless. This spacetime has a foundation beyond my imagination. As the Tao Lord becomes stronger, it's only a matter of time before it connects to hyperspace. That's why I took out the battlefield navigation system in exchange for Daolord's promise. Lu Yin listened quietly. I knew that this place would connect to hyperspace sooner or later, but I didn't expect it to be so soon. I don't know why, but I was suddenly located a few days ago. It's only a matter of time before hyperspace finds me. Once they do, they'll definitely think of a way to capture me. Daolord. Zijing looked at Lu Yin, stood up and bowed deeply. Formal introduction. I am Zijing, the vice leader of Hyperspace Energy Research Team. Greetings. Lu Yin looked at Zijing, who maintained her bow. Are you very important to them? Very important. Although my technology isn't top-notch, it's very crucial. Without me, they'll have to spend a very long time on this technology, and they might not be able to find a way to break through it. I was only able to break through that technology by luck. Lu Yin understood. The battlefield navigation system is hyperspace's technology. It's a technology that our energy research team inadvertently simulated and used in hyperspace. I'm also one of the developers. No wonder you came to the fifth mainland to find a way to connect to the internet. For someone like you, not being connected to the internet is like living in a remote mountain. Zijing didn't speak and maintained her bow. Lu Yin suddenly drew in the void and drew the 2 youths who had followed you on stage here. Look at them. Do you recognize them? Zijing looked up and saw the man in the blue and white jacket. She exclaimed, He Shu. Lu Yin exhaled. So they really did know each other. That made sense. It was impossible to locate Zijing from countless parallel spacetimes unless one relied on luck. When Zijing was suddenly located, Lu Yin could only think of Yuan Sheng and the others, especially that young man. His attire and the device on his right eye were too eye-catching. It was almost identical to the battlefield navigation system and the combat strength detector. Therefore Lu Yin had taken note of him. No wonder I was located. Yishu must have sensed that the fifth continent has a battlefield navigation system, so he confirmed that I am in this spacetime and targeted this spacetime, Zijing said. Lu Yin was puzzled. Can hyperspace locate our spacetime? Zijing replied, Hyperspace has the ability to travel through spacetime, which is something that no other spacetime can compare to. However, it's only capable of locating a location. If you want to come over, you'll need coordinates, but that's not difficult for hyperspace. The 6 directional guilds all have their own coordinates so they can come to our spacetime. The more he listened, the more interested he became. If Zijing wasn't exaggerating, then the power of cultivation techniques in this dimension was similar to microarray technology, and it could transform humans. Half a day later, Lu Yin gripped his teacup tightly. Since I promised to protect you, I won't go back on my word. He looked at Zijing and thought for a moment. What kind of punishment will you face if you return to hyperspace? Why did you escape in the first place? Zijing saw through Lu Yin's thoughts. You want to go to hyperspace? Lu Yin's eyes lit up. We don't know anything about the 6 directional guilds, but they keep an eye on us. We're too passive. Zijing muttered, If you really want to go to hyperspace, then you must be prepared. At the very least, you must be sure that you can return. Lu Yin replied, You don't have to worry about that. I have a plan. Eternal Kingdom's spatial coordinate seal could leave behind more than one aura. He could have someone from the fifth mainland leave behind their own aura and then use the seal to find Eternal Kingdom. Then he could use that person to sense the fifth mainland space and return. What about you? What kind of punishment will you face if you return to hyperspace? Lu Yin asked. He didn't want Zijing to die. Zijing replied, imprisonment, coercion, and even intimidation. You won't die, right? No, they need me. For me, they'll do everything they can to come to this spacetime and take me away. Lu Yin nodded. You can actually find hyperspace in the vast parallel spacetime, right? Zijing replied, I can find it. How long will it take for someone from hyperspace to arrive? Very soon. Lu Yin had Zijing return to her own residence. If she stayed in the above-the-sky sect, then hyperspace might not dare to come looking for her. After making arrangements for Zijing, Lu Yin found Elder Chan and took him to Eternal Kingdom. He left his aura on the spatial coordinate seal and then found senior brother Qing Ping. He also left his aura and asked them to go to Eternal Kingdom every once in a while to confirm whether or not he had returned. Only 2 people would be safe. He then began to make arrangements for the fifth mainland. There was no need for him to announce that he was in seclusion, as doing so would only make him seem guilty. Before leaving, he also found Little Sapling, who was very happy and played with him for half a day. The cosmic tree realm was quiet for the time being. The 4 scales were definitely discussing how to take over the war against Eternal Kingdom. The 6 powers would definitely force them to do something, but this didn't bother Lu Yin for the time being. The Yuan sage's attitude didn't affect him either. His only worry was that something would happen to Xinwu continent. He was afraid that the 3 sovereigns would attack, and when that happened, Xiaxinji would be there as well. Fortunately, Elder Chan and senior brother Wuxia would provide support, which made him feel much more at ease. After everything was prepared, Lu Yin went to Zijing's residence, which was the Neoverse Starlink realm. There he quietly waited for people from hyperspace to arrive. Starlink realm was still the same as before and there hadn't been much change inside. When he arrived, Lu Yin suddenly thought of someone, Bai Qian. Where did Bai Qian go? Lu Yin asked. Zijing replied, first she went to the cosmic tree realm, then to hyperspace. Lu Yin was surprised. She went to hyperspace. Why did she go there? That was her own choice, and it has something to do with you, Pathmaster, Zijing replied with admiration and nostalgia. It was fate that brought us together and we're like sisters. She came from a small place like Earth, and although she wasn't dazzling, her path was more solid than anyone else's. However, she was overshadowed by your radiance. She seems calm on the surface, but I know that she won't admit defeat. She said that the cultivation system here isn't suitable for her, including the cosmic tree realm. She wants to find a more suitable cultivation system. The cosmic tree realm and hyperspace are very suitable for her. Lu Yin sighed. Although he hadn't met Bai Qian many times, there were legends of her on Earth. She was the one who had brought Night King Qingyu from Jupiter to Earth, bringing about the apocalypse and evolution of Earth. She herself had left Earth with Starsabil's invitation and was the first person to step onto the path of cultivation. In fact, Lu Yin hadn't been able to surpass her during his time in the Astral Combat Academy. The main reason he had been able to surpass her was because of his life and death experiences on Drift Charge Planet, and because he had learned the arcane art of life and death. Otherwise, if he had cultivated normally, this woman might have surpassed him. She was an earthling through and through, and she had left her mark in outer space. How is she doing in hyperspace? Lu Yin was curious. Zijing shook her head. I don't know. We're separated by parallel spacetime, so I can't confirm any news about her. Maybe we'll meet again in hyperspace, Lu Yin said. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. A total of 10 days passed by. Lu Yin waited calmly. Finally, on the 12th day in the Astral Alliance realm, he opened his eyes. The ground of the Astral Alliance realm was covered in a dense forest, and animals ran past it from time to time. To these animals, this was the only place they would ever see. There was a crack as a metal-clad foot stepped on a tree branch and broke it, scaring the rabbit away. Sunlight shone through the tree branches, reflecting the light and illuminating a middle-aged man. The man raised his head and looked at the distant tower, the dark green lens on his right eye flashing with a red dot. Is she there? I've finally found her. His body suddenly vanished. It wasn't that he had traveled through the void, but rather that he had moved so quickly that he had caused ripples in space. In an instant the man arrived at the bottom of the tower. He raised his foot and took a step forward, instantly appearing at the top of the tower behind Zijing, who was watering the flowers. The water in Zijing's watering head slowly decreased until it stopped flowing. "Long time no see, Zijing," the middle-aged man said. Zijing didn't turn around. She put down the watering head and sighed. "You guys still found me. It's all thanks to Lord He Shu. Otherwise, we would never have been able to find you. Your departure caused a lot of trouble and caused a lot of losses," the middle-aged man said slowly. Zijing turned around and looked at the man. "I didn't want to either, but once that technology was broken, the disaster would be too severe." The middle-aged man's gaze turned cold. "I don't care about the technology. All I know is that your departure caused the entire energy research team to disband and caused the deaths of more than 1,000 people. Now come with me." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and saw Lu Yin walking out of the door. "Who's there?" The man frowned, and the lens on his right eye flashed with numbers before finally stopping. 270,000. That's equivalent to an enlighter in your space-time. He raised his hand and pointed it at Lu Yin. Zijing's expression changed. "Stop. If you kill him, I'll die immediately." The middle-aged man frowned. Lu Yin leaped forward and pulled out a long blade from his cosmic ring. Scram! He slashed down. The middle-aged man didn't move and allowed Lu Yin's blade to strike his face. A thin layer of metal instantly covered his face, and even though Lu Yin's blade could distort the void with his enlighter's power level, it couldn't harm the man at all. The middle-aged man grabbed the blade and exerted some strength, causing the blade to shatter with a bang. He then pointed at Lu Yin's forehead and stopped. Lu Yin was stunned and didn't dare to move. Beads of sweat dripped down his forehead. Chapter 2493. "You're too weak compared to me. Humans need to know their limits," the man said slowly. Zijing grabbed Lu Yin's arm and pushed him away, glaring at the man. "Kujian, let him go if you want me to live and return with you." The man named Kujian was puzzled. "Why do you care about him?" Zijing's face flushed red. He saved my life." Kujian looked at Lu Yin. "Do you have feelings for him?" At that moment the Starlink major world shook. Kujian looked up with a solemn expression. "The half-ancestor powerhouse of this space-time has discovered him." The pearl in his heart glowed white, and a wave of energy flowed from the pearl to his arm. Kujian waved his hand, tearing the void apart. He grabbed Zijing and Lu Yin and stepped into the spatial tear before disappearing. After he disappeared, Qing Ping walked out and looked at the empty top of the tower. "Have a safe journey, junior brother." There were countless parallel spacetimes in the universe, and some people divided the universe into multiple dimensions. Time and space were the coordinates of these multiple dimensions, and they could be expanded infinitely. In the expanded star chart of the parallel universe, the larger the spacetime, the greater the resistance one would encounter when entering it. Even a small parallel spacetime like the Eternal Kingdom would not encounter much resistance. After Kujian tore through the void with Zijing and Lu Yin, a gust of power came out from the bright white pearl in his heart, isolating Zijing and Lu Yin outside the void. In an instant, the two of them appeared in an even brighter space from the bright space at the top of the tower. This space was filled with metal, and the bright light shone on Lu Yin's face from all directions as he and Zijing floated in midair. Kujian walked out from the top of the tower and knelt down on one knee. "I've brought you back." Lu Yin was astonished. No matter how strong Kujian was, the power he had displayed was definitely at the level of a half-ancestor. For him to be so respectful meant that he had to be facing a progenitor. There was no one in front of Kujian, and there was only a black pearl that emitted a dark light. A loud voice rang out. "Zijing, do you know your crimes? Zijing, do you know your crimes? Zijing, do you know your crimes?" Voices rang out one after another, but they were not echoes. Instead, they came from one person after another, filled with arrogance. Zijing's face paled and she knelt down like Kujian. "Zijing, do you know your crimes? Why did you flee?" The loud sound was like the evening drum and morning bell, exploding in Zijing's ears. Zijing was caught off guard and spat out a mouthful of blood. Blood flowed from her ears, nostrils, and eyes. She knelt on the ground. "Zijing knows her wrongs. Let me ask you, why did you flee?" Another voice rang out. It was so strong that it was almost visible to the naked eye, and it pressed down on Zijing. However, because of the invisible force below her, Zijing had to bear the pressure of two forces at the same time, and she coughed up blood again. Zijing, I'm sorry. Why did you flee? Why did you flee? Why did you flee? A series of explosions rang out, causing Zijing to be constantly pressured. Her outer clothes were torn apart, revealing her snow-white skin. As the pressure of the sounds continued, her skin also began to crack and blood seeped out. It was an extremely miserable sight. Stop. Lu Yin couldn't take it anymore. Were these guys repeating themselves? They all said the same thing. Zijing's face was pale and she did not dare to raise her head. Ku Jian lowered his head to look at Lu Yin as he had not expected the latter to speak up. He was currently using Death Mask to conceal his aura, and he had also changed his appearance slightly so that hyperspace would not recognize him. His cultivation level was also that of an enlighter, which made him a very ordinary cultivator. When he finished speaking, the entire area fell silent. A ray of light descended and swept over his body, and a number appeared in the void. 276,653. Weakling, how dare you speak in this supreme place? Ku Jian, who is he? The voice rang out and a pressure slammed into Lu Yin's body. He was pressed to the ground and this pressure was probably equivalent to a peak in lighters. Ku Jian lowered his head. Zijing has to keep him safe. The two of them are emotionally involved. Lu Yin lay on the ground and pretended to look up with difficulty. Don't make things difficult for Zijing. She's already returned and she knows her wrongs. Impudence. A stern voice barked and the pressure increased. Lu Yin spat out a mouthful of blood just like Zijing and his clothes were torn apart. Since when did it become your turn to speak? Zijing hissed, let him go. I'll do anything you want but you can't hurt him. What a joke. We humans have long since abandoned our emotions and lowly people like you don't have the right to do so. You'll eventually be dragged down by your emotions. Zijing, are you going to protect him? Zijing gritted her teeth and there was blood at the corner of her mouth. Yes. What if he dies? I'll die as well. All right, we'll let him live. Suddenly, a black hole appeared behind Lu Yin and his body was tossed into it. Lu Yin did not resist and in fact he could not have resisted in that place. Since Zijing was so important, the person who had captured her would definitely be one of the upper echelons of hyperspace. Hyperspace was one of the 6 directional associations, and they definitely had more than one progenitor. If Lu Yin was exposed, the consequences would not be good. Fortunately, hyperspace could not detect his true strength, which made sense. Even a progenitor could not detect his true strength. Although hyperspace had powerful cultivation techniques and had embarked on a different path of evolution for humans, it did not mean that this path could surpass that of a cultivation civilization. There was a thump as Lu Yin crashed to the ground. Endless cheers sounded from all around him and a huge light shone on his body once more. He looked up and saw his surroundings. Where is this? Is this a coliseum? He's appeared. The 6th challenger has appeared. What kind of slaughtering feast will he present? Will he be torn to pieces to satisfy your revelry, or will he turn around and kill the astral beast to show off the strength of humans? Begin. A deafening voice boomed. Lu Yin slowly stood up and behind him, a metal cage opened and a roar sounded out. He turned around and saw a strange creature that resembled a tiger and was more than 10 meters long. Its abdomen was covered in white bones, and there were flames burning around it as it stared at Lu Yin with savage eyes. Lu Yin looked at the beast's abdomen and saw chunks of flesh within the bones. He also saw more than one head. Was he the 6th challenger? So that's how it was. Zijing looked up and saw Lu Yin's position on the screen in front of her. Her face paled as she shouted, "You said you would let him go. Zijing, are you willing to be loyal to hyperspace?" A loud voice echoed through the arena. "I am," Zijing hurriedly replied. Within the Colosseum, the astral beast roared and charged out, leaving an afterimage in the air as it raised its sharp claws and slashed down. This beast's power level definitely exceeded 300,000, and Lu Yin would not be able to defeat it while he was still in disguise. He barely dodged, but the claws brushed past his arm and left a deep gash. "Zijing, let me ask you this. Are you willing to do your best to complete the mission given to you by spacetime?" "I am." Lu Yin continuously dodged the beast's attacks, leaving bloody wounds on his arms, legs, and even his abdomen. Countless people around him cheered as pieces of bloody flesh were thrown down from the stands, provoking the beast and causing its eyes to become even more cruel and its movements to become faster and faster. Lu Yin frowned and controlled his body, suppressing his breathing. According to his disguise, the next attack should have torn his abdomen apart. Just as he thought this, the beast swiped at him with its claws. Lu Yin raised his leg and used a battle technique to dodge, but blood flowed from his abdomen and dripped onto the ground. The wound was extremely serious. Zijing, let us ask you, are you willing to give up on your laughable pity and serve hyperspace and dedicate yourself to hyperspace? I am, Zijing shouted. Let him go. Within the Colosseum, Lu Yin stared at the beast in front of him. He would not be able to dodge the next attack. Blood dripped from the corners of his eyes, staining them red. The beast roared and raised its claws high before slashing down. Countless people cheered, eager to see blood. This was their goal in coming here, to let them roar and scream and show their cruel side. The beast's claws slammed down, causing the Colosseum to crack open. Everyone stared at the beast's claws, but there was no blood. Where was he? Lu Yin had been moved again, but this time he was in water. To be more precise, he was in water that could heal injuries. Separated by a barrier, a woman's gaze swept over his body. His injuries are very serious and he almost died. The treatment will take 5 minutes. Take him for a test in 5 minutes. He should be able to pass with his constitution. Kujian was standing nearby. Yes, the woman replied respectfully. She quickly left. Lu Yin looked at Kujian. Kujian walked in front of him and only then did Lu Yin seriously size him up. Kujian did the same to Lu Yin. I admire your cultivation culture, it can complement our techniques very well. It's a pity that you're too weak to show me your strength, Kujian said. Lu Yin asked weakly, what about Zijing? Kujian replied coldly, she'll be put in an important position. After all, the technology she possesses is crucial. You'll also be put in an important position. If you perform well, you might even be accepted by us. From now on, she's one of my people. If anyone asks, just say that you're part of the energy research team's guards. He then looked deeply at Lu Yin. If Zijing's technology can really bring about a breakthrough, she'll become one of the higher-ups in hyperspace. As for you, you'll enjoy something you've never enjoyed in your civilization before. A half-ancestor? Even the progenitor realm isn't just a dream. Even a bug can wield the power of a progenitor. He then turned and left. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. He had passed. From now on, he would be considered a part of hyperspace, and it seemed like he even had a backer. The injuries in the Colosseum were all superficial, and Lu Yin had imitated the beast's attacks. Otherwise, the beast wouldn't have been able to harm him even if he had stood still. These injuries were healed in just a few minutes in the water, and Lu Yin was impressed by the healing abilities of this place. The woman checked Lu Yin's vitals and then had someone take him away. Chapter 2494. Ever since Lu Yin had been brought into the hyperspace, he had been constantly changing locations and he still didn't know where he was. His domain couldn't be used carelessly either, as Zijing had warned him that the hyperspace could detect any form of energy. Domains were also considered to be invisible and could be discovered as well. Stand on top. Lu Yin followed the voice's instructions and stood in a circular device. If he wasn't mistaken, this was a transfer device similar to the ones in the Astral Combat Academy. The scene in front of him changed and he appeared in a large, bright space. This space was much larger than the one that had interrogated him and Zijing. Above him was a blue sky and white clouds, but it seemed more like a simulation. The surroundings were lively and there were people walking around everywhere. He looked to the side and saw a row of circular devices with no end in sight. People constantly appeared, walked out, and then another person appeared. Arrival confirmed, please leave. Arrival confirmed, please leave. Lu Yin lifted his foot and left the circular device. He looked back and saw another person appear. It was a woman and she naturally wanted to leave. Lu Yin happened to block her path. She glared at him, get out of my way. Lu Yin took a few steps back and she left. Lu Yin looked around and discovered a problem. There didn't seem to be any old people in the hyperspace and everyone was very young. Kujian was the oldest person he had ever seen, but this space was mostly filled with young men and women. Some were in a hurry while others stood in place and chatted with each other. Just as he was feeling lost, someone approached him and patted him on the shoulder. Lu Yin turned around and looked at the smiling face in confusion. Brother, you've been standing there for a long time. Why don't you know where to go? It was a skinny man who wasn't very tall. He smiled. I'm Luo Lauer, what about you? Xianxia, Lu Yin replied. Good name, Luo Lauer exclaimed. Lu Yin didn't know what was so good about this name. He had just thought of one for the sake of coming here. You don't seem to know where to go. Why were you forced to come here as well? Luo Lauer asked. Lu Yin nodded. He had indeed been forced to come here. I understand. The people at the top are sometimes unreasonable and they don't care if people are willing or not. They just force them to go to the battlefield. I heard that they don't have feelings. By the way, brother, which noble do you belong to? If you were forced to come here, your status must be quite high, Luo Lauer inquired. I'm not a noble. Not a noble? Brother, you must be joking. All right, I know you want to keep a low profile, so I won't ask. Luo Lauer then pointed into the distance. There's a door at the end of this path. Go in, you can test your various indicators there, collect your energy source, and then wait for your departure. He then patted Lu Yin's shoulder again and smiled. Ask me if there's anything you don't understand. People call me philanthropist Luo, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. Huh. He then turned around and walked towards another person, doing the same thing as before, patting the person's shoulder. Lu Yin could not help but laugh. This was a very friendly person. He looked into the distance and walked in the direction that old second Luo had pointed out. Luo Lauer rubbed his chin as he watched Lu Yin's back. Xian? I've never heard of him before and he's hiding it. Seems like he's a high noble even among this group of people. Soon enough, Lu Yin arrived at the door and pushed it open. Coincidentally, someone was walking out with a distressed expression, muttering something under his breath. The words energy source. He had chatted a lot with Zijing over the past few days, so he knew a few things about the hyperspace dimension. This person had passed the test and received a yellow energy source, which corresponded to a power level of 100,000 or less. In the hyperspace dimension, gray energy sources were the most common, which corresponded to a power level of 10,000 or less. Most soldiers in the hyperspace dimension had this type of energy source. Those with a slightly higher power level were yellow energy sources, which belonged to captains and the like. Beyond that, the energy source jumped straight to a power level of 500,000, which was a green energy source. This energy source allowed one to have power close to that of an emissary and was relatively rare in the hyperspace dimension. Above the green energy source was a blue energy source, which represented a power level of 1 million or less. Above that was a red energy source, which was enough to reach the peak of an emissary's power level of 1,200,000. Finally, there was a white energy source, which was the one that Kujian had used. Could display the power of a half-ancestor and could tear through the void and travel through parallel spacetime. According to the hyperspace dimensions calculations, this energy source had a power level of 2 million or so. The final color was black, which represented the power of a progenitor. The fifth mainland also had a power level detector, but it could only detect the power level of an emissary. It could not detect the power level of a half-ancestor, let alone a progenitor. However, in the hyperspace dimension, the power of a progenitor could also be digitized. This was the manifestation of a progenitor's power with a power level of 5 million or above. This data did not represent a person's true power level and was only a reference. As cultivation developed and civilizations developed, the data would be completely different. The blood progenitor's data could not be similar to Bai Wang Yuan's, but a primogenitor was still a progenitor and his power level was boundless. To the hyperspace dimension, the digitization of progenitor's power could only be used as a reference. The person who had just obtained the yellow energy source could be considered an officer in the hyperspace dimension's army, but he had not been satisfied. This meant that this person's identity was definitely not ordinary. Thinking back to what Luo Lauer had said, the people who appeared in this space most likely came from powerful families. The hyperspace dimension had a hierarchy of nobles. He pushed open the door and entered, seeing the series of testing instruments that Zijing had introduced to him. He had already prepared for them. He quickly went out as well, and the energy source he had obtained was green. His body constitution is pretty good. If one wants to use a higher grade energy source, apart from the physical requirements, they also need to adapt to the energy source's long lifespan. This person's combat prowess is extraordinary, so he is qualified to obtain a green energy source. Check which noble family he is from. I can't find out. As expected, only a great noble family can raise such a talent. Even I can't find out who he is, so it should be related to the decision-making team. Speaking of which, the decision-making team does have immediate family members who are coming. That's interesting. Perhaps one of them is a genius elite who can use a blue energy source. Lu Yin walked out of the door and returned to the hyperspace dimension. Luo Lauer came over and asked, "Brother, what kind of energy source did you get?" Lu Yin replied, "Green." Luo Lauer nodded. As expected, most of the children of great nobles can obtain green energy sources. Only a small number of geniuses nurtured by top nobles can obtain blue energy sources. You should have heard of He Shu, right? That guy obtained a red energy source. Lu Yin thought back to the two youths standing behind Yuan Xing outside the hyperspace dimension. One of them was Master and the other was He Shu. A red energy source? That represented the peak of an emissary. In the fifth mainland, even Chu Yuan, He Luo Mavis and Skypierce Jialon had not reached that level. The place to obtain energy sources is over there. There are so many people lining up there, Luo Lauer told Lu Yin. Lu Yin thanked him and walked over. Luo Lauer was puzzled. That shouldn't be the case. I thought he could get a blue energy source, but green is average. Green is average? What color is yours, Luo Lauer? A crisp voice asked from behind him. Luo Lauer subconsciously replied, "If this great philanthropist is willing, I can directly take the blue one." After saying that, he turned around in a daze and saw a beautiful face full of vitality and liveliness. A pair of sly eyes looked at Luo Lauer. "Blue. Alright, let's go and take the test." Luo Lauer laughed dryly. "Isn't this Sister Yu? Why are you here?" The girl's lips curled up mischievously. "I want to come. Who can stop me?" "Luo Lauer, let's go take the test together." "Don't, Sister Yu. You know me. I have a stomachache." "Stop pretending. Mudo said that you beat him up once. You're much stronger than him and you're still shamelessly taking a green energy source. Come with me." "Sister Yu, don't listen to that bastard. He's just taking revenge." Lu Yin stood in the middle of the line and looked back. He saw Luo Lauer being dragged away by a pretty girl and it reminded him of Fatty Huang. People like him were everywhere. A green energy source represented a peak in lighter, which was close to the power level of an emissary. There weren't many of these existences in the fifth mainland, and there weren't even a billionth of them in the population of the fifth mainland. If the Cosmic Tree Society was included, then there were even fewer of them. However, in the hyperspace universe, it was like waiting in line to get a number. This did not mean that the hyperspace universe had surpassed the fifth mainland in this aspect. It could only be said that different civilizations presented different situations. If one day the hyperspace universe casually threw a green energy source on the ground for others to pick up, then Lu Yin would be truly shocked. Suddenly, a hand pressed down on Lu Yin's shoulder, and a large face leaned over with a sinister expression. "Kid, you don't have a problem with me cutting in line, right?" Lu Yin blinked and looked at the sinister man in front of him. He then looked at the muscles on the man's arm. "No problem." The man praised, "Smart." He then waved his hand and a few people followed behind him. There were both men and women and they all giggled as they stood in front of Lu Yin. Many people behind Lu Yin were angry, but they didn't dare to say anything. They all glared at Lu Yin. "Useless thing. You don't even dare to say anything when someone cuts in line. Trash. Don't let me find a chance to beat you to death." Lu Yin rolled his eyes. Not long after, he received a green energy source and played with it in his hand. This thing was transparent when not in use, and it was impossible to tell the color of someone's energy source. He couldn't even detect a trace of their power level. As for its hardness, Lu Yin didn't dare to use too much strength for fear of crushing it. As long as he pressed this thing into his body, he could extract its power and use it. It was located in his heart. Lu Yin's heart still had a wound that hadn't healed yet. It had been deliberately left behind by that girl during her treatment in order to provide him with an energy source.